Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Democratic candidates did well in yesterday's elections. They won gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey and the mayoral race in New York City. Some exit polls, such as those from CNN, suggest that voters who are worried about the cost of living chose Democratic candidates. In California, voters overwhelmingly chose to allow state lawmakers to redraw congressional districts. The goal is to try to send up to 5 more Democrats to Congress. California acted after President Trump pressured Texas lawmakers to redraw their districts. That goal is to send Republicans to Congress. President Trump is blaming bad results for Republicans in last night's elections on the government shutdown. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports Trump is pressing Republican lawmakers to get rid of the filibuster. That requires approval from 60 senators.
In President Trump's first public remarks after Democratic victories in the New York City mayor's race, as well as the New Jersey and Virginia governor's races, Trump lamented to Republican senators that Democrats were not getting more of the blame for the shutdown, which is now the longest in history.
If you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. And that was a big factor. And they say that I wasn't on the ballot was the biggest factor. But I don't know about that, but I was honored that they said that.
Trump argued that eliminating the filibuster was the only way to end the government shutdown. Republicans have so far opposed the effort. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, the White House.
Nearly 42 million people are losing a big part of their food budget this month as the federal government delays their monthly SNAP payments. Some nonprofits and private companies are trying to bridge the gap. NPR's Maria Aspen reports on one tech startup that is sending cash to some recipients.
Jimmy Chen runs a small tech company called Propel. It makes a free app for people on the federal government's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. About 5 million people use Propel's app, meaning that Chen sees just how much the delayed payments are hurting their families. So Propel teamed up with a nonprofit, Give Directly, to run a crowdfunding campaign. This weekend, they started giving $50 each to Propel users with little or no income and kids to feed.
We understand that $50 is not enough. It's not enough to help a family afford food for a whole month or anything even close.
But until the government fully restores SNAP payments, he's hoping that it makes a little bit of a difference. Maria Aspen, NPR News, New York.
The mayor of Louisville, Kentucky, says the death toll from yesterday's plane crash has now risen to 9 people. A UPS cargo plane was trying to take off when it caught fire, exploded, and crashed. On Wall Street, the Dow is up about 25 points. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Low-income families here in Massachusetts will resume getting some federal food assistance starting next week. That's after court rulings ordered the Trump administration to partially fund the SNAP program. More than 1 million people in Massachusetts get help paying for food through the federal program, and we will have much more on this with Governor Maura Healey, who is standing by with Jim and Marjorie. Members of Norman Rockwell's family have taken issue with the Department of Homeland Security for its use of the artist's work in a series of social media posts that the family says misrepresents the artist's beliefs. The posts made in recent months to the Department of Homeland Security Facebook, Instagram, and X accounts have paired some of Rockwell's well-known paintings of 20th century Americans with slogans that promote the Trump administration's anti-immigration efforts. In an opinion piece published Sunday in the USA Today, Rockwell's son and other family members wrote that the paintings had been used without the family's authorization and that Norman Rockwell would be devastated to see his work used for the persecution of immigrant communities and people of color. In sports, the Celtics host the Wizards at the Garden tonight. In the forecast, overcast upper 50s today, cloudy, windy, and low 40s overnight. There's a wind watch in effect until 10 this evening. Partly cloudy, windy tomorrow as well, high about 50 degrees, mostly cloudy and mid-50s on Friday. 52 degrees right now in Boston. Time for Ask the Governor on GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Sony Pictures Classics with Nuremberg, a new thriller starring Rami Malek and Michael Shannon about the historic post-World War II trial of Nazi official Hermann Göring. Starts Friday in theaters.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Yeakin. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Thank you very much. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Later in the show, this is going to be a real treat. Faith Soloway, who, of course, is co-creator of Transparent, with a new musical preview, this rollicking new show they've got. You're going to hear live music here in just a little while, a couple of more programming notes. The mayor's going to be with us November 18th from 12 to noon here at the library. The legendary cellist Yo-Yo Ma is going to perform here at the Boston Public Library on November 19th. No tickets or RSVP needed, Jim. It is free. Good morning.
To me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent, thank you.
Good. It's time for a November edition of Ask That Person, the governor.
The governor.
With Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey. She is here until noon, taking our questions and yours. If you have a question for the governor, you can give her a call or a text at 877-301-8970. Or if you're here at the library, you can go see our colleague, Aiden? It's not Aiden. Who are you over? Nicole. You go see Nicole over there, and you can talk directly to the governor. Governor Healey, it's good to see you.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Governor
Great to be
Healey.
here.
Great to see you, too.
Pretty good
Great
timing,
to see you, too. Well, Governor, lots of people who are Democrats who are not big fans of Donald Trump are very happy today. What do you think about the election results?
I mean, that's what last night was about. Across the board, in state after state, from California to Georgia, New Jersey, Virginia, Pennsylvania, to Maine, voters said they don't like what Donald Trump is doing. It was a referendum on their dislike of how he's handling the economy. It was a statement about what a lousy job people think he's doing around things like costs. I mean, we're focused on affordability every day, and I think that that's so much of what the races were about. It's happening at a time where Donald Trump is continuing to make life harder and more expensive for Americans. And last night, the voters, I think, sent a resounding message rejecting that and that they need to see something different. It was a great night because he's got to, I just think about all that's happening right now and the terrible things that are happening to our economy, to Americans around this great nation. And certainly we've seen the impact in Massachusetts. And last night was just, I think, a resounding rejection of Donald Trump and what he's been about. And also just great candidates. I'm particularly excited about my two new governor colleagues.
Yeah, that's right.
Really, really great. So it was a really important night.
You know what? I'm sorry,
I was just
Marjorie,
going to say that there seems to be this debate now this morning. Okay, Zoran Mandami is a Democratic socialist. People call him a far-left radical. I don't see him that way. I don't think there's all that radical to get help with childcare or with food. But in any case, that's how he's pegged. And then you have the more moderate Democrats, the two winners in Virginia and New Jersey. So is there this battle here between both sides, the soul of the Democratic Party, do you think?
No, there's no battle. And those are pundits and others who are self-interested in creating the specter of some battle. Look, this Democratic Party, it's a big tent. And I will tell you what the through line is through all of these elections. It's affordability.
Yep.
All these candidates focused on what they were going to do to lower costs, to make life easier and better for Americans right now who are struggling with the price of groceries, health care, energy costs. And that's, what came through loud and clear to me in each of these elections and what each of these candidates ran on and stood for. And that is a really important message to the President of the United States, who right now is continuing to starve Americans by withholding SNAP, and also a message to the Republicans. Get back to Washington, do your job, and negotiate a deal to reopen government. I've got 45,000 federal workers in Massachusetts right now who are threatened. I have hundreds of federal workers in Massachusetts who are applying for unemployment insurance. We have federal workers who are out of work, who are at food pantries this weekend. It is absolutely unacceptable. And for this president to just continue to not follow the law. We could talk about SNAP. I mean, he's in contempt. He was ordered by a court to do what he's legally required to do, which is to fund SNAP. And he's not doing it. And, instead he's focused on ballrooms and bathrooms and, all these things, great Gatsby parties. It's unbelievable. And what came through last night in all of these elections is that Americans are rejecting that. Around the country, Americans are rejecting how Donald Trump is handling the economy. They're saying that Donald Trump has been a huge failure on addressing, the economic circumstance of American families, and they're just saying no. That's what last night was about.
Can we continue the conversation about SNAP, Governor? We've talked about it almost nonstop, as have you. We know that the court, Rhode Island and Massachusetts on Friday, ordered Trump to use the $6 billion he had there. He says the amount of money there only covers 50% of the November cost. That's one. Two, the judge went out of his way to say there's another $23 billion fund that you are legally permitted to use. He's chosen not to. So of the first of a number of questions, when will SNAP recipients in Massachusetts get money? Even if Trump complies, it does the 50% deal, when will they see their cards recharged, even halfway?
We're ready to get money out the door as soon as it comes in.
Do you know when it's coming in?
No, and this is, just to zoom out for a minute, Jim, SNAP is food assistance. It's provided to Americans, predominantly seniors, older folks, people with disabilities, and children. That's who your SNAP beneficiaries are. They live in every state. They live in every city and town in America. Red states, blue states. SNAP beneficiaries are everywhere. Many of them are working. They're just working poor. They don't have enough money to feed their families. And so SNAP has been in place for a long time. We've had other federal shutdowns, and every other president has funded SNAP during a federal shutdown. Donald Trump chose not to feed Americans. He chose not to release those SNAP benefits. We had to take him to court. Thank you to A.G. Campbell, who led the charge there. 25 states took him to court along with organizations, got the order declaring what we already knew to be true, is that he was legally required to fund SNAP. But yet, he wakes up yesterday and says, I'm not going to follow that court order. Initially said, I'm only going to fund half. Half to Americans who are starving, who are anxious about how they're going to feed their families. That's what's happening. He's now said he's not going to fund SNAP. So I don't know, Jim. We also received from the USDA, they're the agency that oversees SNAP, a memo the other day. The memo said that here's the guidance we want you to use for SNAP distributions. It was so convoluted and messed up, I think intentionally so, because they are doing and seemingly to find every which way to deny relief to Americans. That's what's happening right now with Donald Trump. That is what is going on with this federal government. It's all the more reason people need to get back to Washington and reopen government. In the meantime, Jim, I just want to say, having spent time at food pantries all weekend, I am so grateful to the people of Massachusetts who in their hearts know that this is wrong. The number of donations in food, in money to food pantries, to food banks, thank you so much. United Way's got a response fund. United Way, Mass Bay, go there online. You can make a contribution. They're getting money out to organizations to help them purchase food. I think about our small grocery stores, our retailers who are also suffering because they're not getting the SNAP revenue from customers that they're used to. This is a terrible, terrible situation. And it's not just SNAP, Jim. It's not just SNAP, though people need to know in Massachusetts that 1 in 7 people in Massachusetts are on SNAP. 1 in 7, maybe 1 in 6. There are neighbors.
People.
There are coworkers, right? They're people that you see at daycare or at church. These are your SNAP beneficiaries. I was in Salem on Saturday, and I asked a group of volunteers, some of whom were there for the first time, and I met this one woman who was showing up for the first time, and I said, "What brought you here?" And she said, "When I was growing up here in Massachusetts, I was on SNAP." And she went on to college, works for a pharmaceutical company, and she knows exactly what that meant to her and her life trajectory. And I was very moved by that. I've been very moved by the people coming out. But make no mistake about it, this is wrong. This is Donald Trump's decision. This is the choice that he is making. And so anyone that you're talking to who wants to excuse this president or explain away what he's doing, I think you have a pretty hard time doing that, especially juxtaposed next to what he's doing, this gross, disgusting display, building this ballroom for some untold millions of amounts we don't even know, throwing this party down at Mar-a-Lago this weekend, of all weekends. Fixation on marble in bathrooms. This is what's happening. And it's not just SNAP. I'll tell you what else is happening. 1 million residents in Massachusetts denied SNAP. Another 300,000 residents in Massachusetts denied heating assistance funding right now from the federal government. Another 300,000 Massachusetts residents who received notices that their health care premiums are going to go up through the roof, in some instances increasing by as much as $20,000. And then, of course, we have the devastating cuts to Medicaid. And we already have federal workers who are not getting paid and who are filing for unemployment. That's what Donald Trump has done. And those Republicans need to get back to work and reopen government. I mean, do you know that Mike Johnson, he's the Speaker of the House. He has only called the House into session 12 out of the last 100 days. He sent them all away because he's afraid to have that woman from Arizona sworn in, right? So he's keeping them away from D.C. So for those who say Democrats need to, get back and negotiate, Democrats are there. They're in D.C. actually trying to do their jobs, but they're there by themselves. And so Donald Trump, I hope takes a message from last night, gives the permission, which apparently he needs to do, to some of these weak leaders in Congress, the Republicans, and give them the permission to do what's right and do, frankly, what's in their own self-interest. Because read the room. Americans spoke loud and clear in red states and blue states last night that what Donald Trump is doing, the lousy job he's doing handling the economy, is not working for them.
Governor, one last question about SNAP, and then we're going to get to the Coles because there are tons of them. By my calculation, even if Trump were to come up with 50% of November's federal funding, it still leaves Massachusetts $100+ million short. You advanced, I think it's $4 million from some reserve fund to food pantries and other things, but that still leaves a huge hole. And Lorraine in Berlin, Massachusetts is asking, please ask the governor why she's not using Massachusetts Rainy Day Fund to fill in the gap for lack of federal SNAP benefits. Why, Governor?
Yeah, to be clear, I want to do everything that I can to support these families and those who need food. I advanced funding. I doubled the amount of funding for our food pantries. We work together with others to stand up that United Way site. I've been all over asking people to continue to give and support our food pantries and food banks. SNAP benefits are about $220 million a month coming into Massachusetts. We cannot begin to make that up. I just laid out, the other things that are coming. SNAP ran out last week, Saturday. LIHEAP ran out Saturday. WIC runs out in another week. We have other programs, funding coming in that is running out, has run out dates because of the shutdown. Head Start. I had to advance money the other day to Head Start in order to keep 2,000 little kids in childcare the other day. If I hadn't done that, they wouldn't have had childcare. 2,000 of our littlest kids in Massachusetts would have been without childcare. So, you got to look at the whole picture of what's happening, including these devastating Medicaid cuts. Trump and the Republicans have taken $1 trillion of funding out of health care. That has a huge impact on states all over the country. So I am trying to do the best I can to manage the situation. It is absolutely unnecessary. It's totally unacceptable. But no state can come forward and replace what the federal government has taken away. And the federal government, Trump was also very clear, nobody's going to be paid back. That's also what they've said, nobody's going to be paid back. So the level of cruelty and callousness is something we've never seen before. And again, I think it's why you saw so many people take to the polls last night. I mean, record turnout in places because people are just absolutely fed up with what's happening.
Let's go to Bob in Braintree. You're on with the governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. Welcome.
Good morning, Governor. How are you?
Good morning.
Governor, could you share about your defense initiative that you revealed, I think it was last month?
Oh, yeah. Look, as your governor, and we've got an economy right now and a state that is #1 in the United States for innovation, for education, for healthcare. We lead on a lot of metrics. As you know, we've been hit hard in some of our sectors when Trump has decided to take away funding for NIH or NSF, and these things are so important to funding research and science and discovery in our state. As I look around, I think about the assets we have in Massachusetts, and one of the great assets that we have that I think is underutilized as a sector is the defense industry. So much of the capability of our defense industry comes out of Massachusetts institutions. And, they employ a lot of people, they support a lot of jobs, they support our economy. And so I stood with leaders from the defense industry and from research organizations related to that the other day to announce something called the SHIELD Act, which is all about, a strategic investment in that defense industry hub right here in Massachusetts. So look, as governor, I am always looking for ways to create jobs, to drive economic growth. And that's an example of an area where I think we can really lean in. When you think about, the technology, whether it's, technology around detecting weapons or security surveillance materials, or there's just so much happening in this space. And Massachusetts, as a state that leads in innovation education, we got people from all over our state, all over the world who come here, incredibly talented to do this work. We've really grown this sector, and I want to lean in. It's going to be good for us.
Bob, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970 is the number.
Jessica from Boston, thank you for calling.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica, and I'm a case manager at DMH and also an SEIU member. My question is, we fought so hard to save our jobs, and now the state is proposing a buyout and not going to backfill those positions. We serve about 29,000 individuals, the most vulnerable individuals in Massachusetts, and we're feeling the crunch of SNAP benefits going away and all of these other things everyone's feeling. And with less workers and more people in need, how are we expected to survive this?
Yeah, Jessica, first of all, thank you for being a great teammate. I am so proud of the work that people are doing at the Department of Mental Health and across our state agencies, especially those right now who have a lot on their plate, because a lot of our state agencies take care of some of the most vulnerable people in our state. And with the federal government attacking, essentially, by not funding services for vulnerable folks, our state agencies are having to do even more. So, Jessica, I just want to thank you and all your coworkers for everything that you do. When I came in 3 years ago, one of the things that I was committed to was making sure that workers like you got paid. And we increased salaries. We did that for a reason, because I want to keep and retain talented people like you, and I want more people coming into much needed human services positions. So we did that. It's also the case that this is a hard time right now, given what's happening, especially with the federal government and what Trump is doing to the economy. So we're trying to work through all these issues right now. And I've made no decisions about what's going to happen with respect to state employees. But, it's something we're trying to manage, and, I am trying to do everything. If we can't take care of people, we can't take care of people unless we have the people to do that work. So I'm very mindful of that. And again, thank you for all you do.
Jessica, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Governor Healey, there's been talk today among the Democrats, supposedly 12 Democrats, I think fewer than that are needed, to vote to open up the government with a promise that President Trump will, and the Congress will have a vote on health care benefits. So do you think the Democrats should do that, or should they wait until the Republicans negotiate on health care benefits?
I don't know anything about the specifics of that. What I do know is that the federal government needs to reopen, and people need to have health care coverage. They cannot have their health care coverage taken away, and that's what Trump is doing by ending the subsidies for the health care premiums.
But you think they should do it? The Democrats should open up the government, though, before they get the health care benefits dealt with? I mean, they want to promise. Now that's what they're talking about.
Oh, Donald Trump's going to promise? Yeah, good luck with that.
Okay.
Look, people need to get back to Washington and do their jobs,
Okay.
and it's not that complicated, okay? Continue the subsidies, reopen the government, and negotiate everything else.
Okay.
And by the way,
In
it'd be
that order.
nice. Well, and it'd be nice if, congressional Republicans push back. I mean, at this point, guys, it's pretty clear what's happening. Your boss, your leader-in-chief is taking you all down. And you've got midterms next year. Read the room. This isn't working for people. Donald Trump has only made life more expensive. We've got work to do, and I'm not absolving the Democratic Party or anyone else there in leadership, including myself. I mean, I know every day I'm focused on how do I build more homes more quickly so that we can drive down rents and drive down the cost of housing. How do we work to get more energy in and get things off people's bills so that we lower their energy costs this winter? I'm focused on how do we deal with rising healthcare costs? What do we need to do to rein that in? I mean, that's my number one focus, affordability. I think it needs to be the number one focus for Democrats. And frankly, Democrats are the ones offering a plan and offering leadership nationally on that. I haven't seen a thing from the Republicans. They haven't said anything. They're just back home in their districts. Certainly the president has offered nothing except more tariffs, more uncertainty in the market, spending money on things that aren't about supporting jobs and the American families, right? I mean, he's spending money on ballrooms and parties and, all sorts of stuff like that. Threats to invade Nigeria, for God's sakes. The American people are hurting right now because of his policies. And, he and the Republicans have an opportunity to do something about that. I don't know if they will, but I know the Democrats will.
Governor, we have to take a break in a minute, but let me just pose this question. We'll get as much as we can, and then we may have to continue it. You've talked about, obviously, all the pressures on state dollars because of the withdrawal of federal funds and that sort of thing. There have been stories and a report from Mass Municipal Association about how tough finances are in cities and towns. We read that 38 states, not Massachusetts, allow for local option sales taxes, for example. Mayor Wu was standing there about a week ago and said outright she thought that the legislature should repeal Proposition 2.5. Do you support either of those moves? And if not, what do you propose to make life easier for city and town
And
officials?
Massachusetts doesn't give much money to cities and towns compared to other states.
Speaking.
Yeah.
So where are you on that?
Actually, we do give a lot of money, both for education and for the funding of roads and bridges. And we're going to continue to. And under my time as governor, we have increased that. We've fully funded the Student Opportunity Act, and we've given out more money. It's also the case that, cities and towns are hurting right now because they too are experiencing inflation. Everything that they do has gotten more expensive, the things that they have to buy as a city or town. Also, they've seen healthcare costs increase, just like the private sector has seen healthcare costs increase. In government, we've seen that, and in local government, we've seen that. So the same thing that's happening in the private sector and in state government is also happening at the local level. Look, I'll just say this, that we have a very, very close working relationship with our cities and towns. Of course, my teammate, Kim
Governor.
Driscoll, was a mayor for 17 years, and we're going to continue to support our cities and towns.
We're talking with the governor.
Computer break. Our apologies.
Yeah,
But we'll come right back
exactly
and we'll
on
continue.
time.
Our apologies.
Sorry about that.
We'll be right back with the governor.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, grab your skateboard and set your time circuits. Our Wednesday watch party is heading to 1985 for Back to the Future. 40 years later, Marty, Doc, and the DeLorean are still riding that 88-mile-an-hour blast. Cue up the movie, watch along with us, and call in to share your favorite moments. The future and the past are waiting. That's on The Culture Show today at 2 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and Forge Heat Pumps in Newton. Forge's in-house team designs and installs all-in-one heat pump systems that deliver heating and cooling year-round. Details at forgeheatpumps.com. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds from utility bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. And Dover Rug and Home. Rugs and carpeting for today's lifestyle with in-home rug trial and design consultation. Dover Rug in Natick, Boston, Burlington, and online at doverrug.com. Dover Rug. Rugs and the people who know them. And the Boston Symphony Orchestra. This week, the great Midori performs Dvorak's Violin Concerto at Symphony Hall. Coming soon, Brahms' Second Symphony and Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition. bso.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Margery Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. In the 12 o'clock hour, the co-creator of Transparent, Faith Soloway, with her sister, will be here with a preview of One Long Earring. We heard the rehearsal this morning. It is fabulous. The mayor's here on the 18th. Yo-Yo Ma's here to talk and perform on the 19th. Apologies for interrupting the governor. She's with us till the end of the hour. Governor, the things left on the table because we had a break. I was asking about two proposals some are making. One, to give cities and towns a local option sales tax, not a mandate, an option. And Mayor Wu's proposal that Prop 2.5 has outlived its usefulness should be repealed. Where are you on those things?
Well, we know that our municipalities are struggling with their budgets. I mean, we struggle with that as a state government, and the private sector is struggling as well. And that's why, over the last 3 years, we've increased school funding by $1.4 billion. Over the last 3 years, an additional $1.4 billion in state funding out to our schools. We've increased funding for roads and bridges by 50%. We proposed something called the Municipal Empowerment Act to help our municipalities reduce financial pressure by giving them more tools. We're squarely in the corner. I love each of our 351 cities and towns, and it's hard right now, with inflation costs, with healthcare costs. So we are trying to do all that we can with state resources. It's also a reason why, the federal policies, what's happening at the federal level matters, right? I mean, none of us, no local leader, no mayor, no governor controls inflation. We don't control tariffs, but these things have a huge impact on us. Just like it has a huge impact on us when we see money taken away for programs like SNAP, because then more people are going to end up, falling through the cracks. And in government, it's our responsibility at the local level and the state level to look after them. When you take away funding for people's health care insurance, in 2 months, by jacking up the cost, that means more people are going to go uninsured. They're going to be showing up at community hospitals, without that coverage. And we all bear the cost of this, which is why, it's so important that on the federal level, the federal government and the president be doing things to lower costs.
Well, but you didn't answer the question, if I may. Two things that would give individual cities and towns power to raise their own money if they need to. Dumping 2.5 local option sales. Do you support either of them?
I think those are for municipalities to decide, and I respect the will of the voters. I respect the will of the voters on that. So I know it's something that's being discussed at the local level now and at the state level. I'll review anything that comes my way. I'm also making what I think is a now point, We need to, right now, make sure that federal funds are flowing, that the government is reopened, and that Donald Trump changed course from the terrible job he is doing managing our economy.
Let's go to Rochester, Massachusetts. Damien, I think, is your name. Damien, welcome. You're talking to the governor.
Governor, good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Good morning, Damien.
Quick question for you. The federal government has really shown that it's capable of handling health care. The Republicans particularly.
Hey, Damien, we have a horrible connection. We're going to put you on hold, and we'll take one other call. And if you move around your house or your office or wherever you are, we'll try to go right back to you after Joe on the road.
No.
Joe, you're on.
Shout out to the South Coast, though. I'll be down in New Bedford later on today, actually.
Joe on the road. That caller just disappeared. We did not cut him off. Joe, on the road, you're on with the governor. Welcome.
Hi, Governor. How you doing?
Hey, Joe. How you doing?
Good. I just had two questions. Maybe you can choose which ones you want to respond to.
Go ahead with the questions,
That's nice.
Joe.
That's more choice than Jim gives me.
The first question, what is being done to address the fraudulent ballot initiative to recriminalize marijuana going on in the state right now? And the second question is, what would you say to people who feel like you're not doing enough to combat ICE?
To combat ICE?
Yes.
Sure. So on marijuana, look, cannabis is here in Massachusetts, and I want the cannabis industry to work well for our state, to work well for our economy. And my administration stands ready to work with the Cannabis Commission on that. In terms of what ICE is doing, Joe, I have spoken out about this in the strongest possible terms. I have supported the litigations opposing ICE actions in states around this country. I have been clear that I am the Commander-in-Chief of the National Guard, and there is no need to send troops into any state in this country, that's all political theater. And I have talked about the plight of so many in Massachusetts who have seen their parents and their sons and daughters and their brothers and sisters, their coworkers, ripped from our communities, taken from our streets by ICE agents. Folks who are law-abiding, paying their taxes, many of whom have lived here for a long time, and it's not what should be going on. And I've said, look, I was AG and a prosecutor. If it was actually about going after violent guys and taking them off the streets, 100% support, have my support. But that's not what is going on. That is not what is going on. Unfortunately, the courts right now have a lot of control over this. I think it's really important, Joe, that people, and this is what I encourage people to do, continue to film, continue to document, continue to share the stories about what's happening. Because in addition to people being fed up with how Trump is handling the economy, polls show people are fed up with what he's doing with ICE and how he is abusing ICE and how he's trying to weaponize ICE for his own gain. People are fed up around this country. And that's what's happening. We need to continue to talk about it, and we need to continue to demand that the president stop this.
Joe,
I just want to mention, for those of you who go to the Alston Car Wash.
I'll also say, we have spent a lot of time, Joe, convening my office and my Office of Refugees and Immigrants, convening with immigrant organizations and leaders. We funded, assistance to them and legal assistance to them because we've got so many people who have been unlawfully detained and picked up as well, including little kids. You've heard the stories, right? We've got teenagers who've been taken away. It's kind of unimaginable. If you'd asked us, 5 years ago, would we see this on the streets of Massachusetts and the streets of America? Masked agents. No, I don't think this is something we would have ever envisioned. It's not who we are. It's not who America is.
Well, I just want to mention that 9 people were just detained, and as far as the people there knew, they all had documentation, but nonetheless,
yeah, they had
not,
documentation.
The Alston Car Wash.
The car wash.
Mostly
I've
women.
been to that car wash.
It's a great car wash.
I used to go there when I lived in Brookline.
For your car. That's what we call it there. And the 9 women that are mostly women that clean the inside of your cars, they hauled off.
Yeah.
And we don't have any answers.
And you know what? How many of them have kids today who are without their parents?
Well, that's exactly
right. Think
right.
about that for any of us who are parents. Can you imagine the trauma? See, we're going to be living with the effects of this for some time, and I'm confident that in Massachusetts we're going to take care of one another, just like we're going to try to take care of what's happening with people's food needs. But, the depths of this trauma and the destruction that he is bringing upon so many people, upon so many communities, upon industries in our economy, you just go right down the list. I don't see anybody benefiting from what he's doing except for a very, 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 very limited number who are very, very wealthy. They're the only ones I see benefiting right now. I invite anybody to point to, some group that's better off right now. Which is kind of amazing, right? When you think about the country, farmers are devastated, veterans are hurt, people in red states and blue states, people out of work, slowing economy. It's unbelievable.
Governor Healey, I wanted to ask you about the Globe reported, Samantha Gross reported on this story, a gentleman who was quite well known in Springfield, ran for city council, school board, was feted 100 Men of Color Awards at Harvard just last month, Lamar G. Cook. He was just arrested in Springfield on charges where authorities seized nearly 18 pounds of cocaine that were slated to be delivered to the downtown state office over the weekend, and he's has been an aide of yours. What happened?
We don't know all the circumstances. The DA is investigating. I will tell you this. This is one of our employees who works out of our Springfield office. I was shocked, and I was so angry. It's a huge betrayal of trust, a huge betrayal of trust for those of us who work hard in government and the people of Springfield, frankly. So, let the authorities take care of them. I appreciate the work, actually, of the Massachusetts State Police, who helped investigate and apprehend him. And as soon as I learned of it, he was terminated before he even was arraigned.
Let's go to Damien, who is back. Apparently has walked to another part of his house or wherever he is. Hi, Damien from Rochester. You're on with the governor again. Hi.
Hey, Jim. Thank you, Governor. Sorry about the bad connection.
Much better. Thank you.
In my question comes to the GOP is pretty much sabotaged health care on a national level. So I think it's up to the states to really take the issue over. And I would like to see Massachusetts spearhead an effort with other blue states on the West Coast and the East Coast to set up a compact to provide single-payer health care for their citizens. And this would cover anybody who's not currently covered by federal programs like Medicare or Medicaid or the VA. But I think it gives a great opportunity both for our citizens and to attract businesses, because companies aren't going to have to pay health care for their workers. And entrepreneurs who want to set up their own businesses don't have to worry about, who's going to pay their doctor's bills while they're setting up their company. So I'd really like to see us give some serious effort to looking into this with other states.
Yeah.
Thank you, Damien.
Thanks, Damien. And let me tell you what we are doing, Damien. Weeks ago, I announced that Massachusetts was leading a coalition of several states. We've got about 8 or 9 other states stretching all the way down to Pennsylvania and Maryland. We're working together to basically set up our own public health infrastructure. It's why I was able to announce that everybody in Massachusetts is able to get a vaccine. Insurers are going to pay for it. Pharmacies are going to make that available. Also, we're working, and we did that. We did that, frankly, because the RFK took vaccines away and dismantled and fired all the scientists and experts from the CDC. So this has given us a moment, to Damien's point, of getting states to work together. And, as a state that is #1 in the country for not just quality of health care, but also the number of people covered by health care insurance, we wanted to lead. And that's why we established this coalition. We're working together not just on vaccine distribution, but also on surveillance of disease, because you have to monitor now, what's happening. The CDC used to do that. They used to identify if there were, outbreaks of measles and the like. We're having to do that as states, and also work together on emergency preparedness. When it comes to healthcare costs, Damien, this is, a top issue, an absolute top issue, which is also why you see, the debate right now in Washington. People are outraged. They can't afford healthcare, and they can't afford these double-digit increases in premiums. So what we need to do, and what I'm doing here in Massachusetts, we've got to figure out a way by bringing together our insurers, our providers, hospitals, our major employers, come together at the table and figure out a new way forward, because we've got to find a way to reduce costs and make healthcare more affordable. We need to do it all around this country, and I stand ready to work with others on that, including other states, because we've talked about what can states do with more bulk purchasing power, right? Before, we haven't set that up before, but in the same way, I invited all the Canadians down, and I got together with the New England states. I invited New York in, and we had a conversation about how we're going to bring more energy into the region and lower energy costs. We can do that with healthcare too, and I've been talking to other governors about that. Down in this country.
Can I return to 2 things that you just were critical of when you were talking about ICE with the listener and with Marjorie? You mentioned kids getting grabbed, And there's a term that has sadly come into use about the school to deportation pipeline. And there's a bill and the reason is because once you're charged with a crime, you go in an FBI database, which helps them out. There's a bill in the legislature to exempt minors from the fingerprint database of the FBI. That's one. And two, there's also a bill to make it illegal at any level of law enforcement for a law enforcement person to wear a mask. And there's some question about whether or not a state could ever require a federal law enforcement agent to do anything. But do you support either or both of those things?
I haven't looked at either one of those specifically. I'll tell you on the issue of masks, I just want folks to understand our local police, our state police, no one wears masks. They wear a badge. They are identified by name and number. And I just think it's really important that people in our state, and I think they do, distinguish between what they're seeing from ICE and those who've been called in, with promises of a $50,000 bonus to come work for ICE, and the work of the men and women in our local police departments and law enforcement and the state police who do not wear masks, who are there with body-worn cameras, fully accountable. And I understand it doesn't make sense. It's so upsetting to people that how are these guys allowed to wear masks? I think the law is clear on that. That they are. I know it's been challenged, and there's been something filed out in California. But right now, I guess that is the law, and it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to a lot of people, that they're somehow allowed to have a different standard.
Well, I know you haven't seen the language, but it's
and in
pretty
terms
clear.
of the kids, look, I'll say this. This is one of the reasons we need immigration reform. We've got, think about all the kids who were brought here. And look, I'm not excusing anybody who crossed the border unlawfully, okay? But the fact of the matter is, that's been happening for generations. And, we definitely needed tightening on the border. That has happened, okay? But we've got a lot of people in this country who are here. They may be in process for citizenship, but they're not there yet. We got to figure out a way to work with them in a way that makes sense. Taking them away from our communities, our employers, their kids doesn't make sense. Nor does punishing little kids who had no control over what was happening to them, who are in our schools and playing on our sports teams and living their lives, going to college, working. And these stories are particularly gut-wrenching for me, right? Because they had no control over this, but they're just subject to the inability of the federal government and a president and Congress, who frankly control everything. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Wouldn't now be the time for immigration reform, sensible, pragmatic immigration reform that I think most Americans, are behind, a path forward?
We should also add that crossing the border is not a crime. It's a civil violation. And a lot of people, including the president, don't seem to understand that. Susan and JP, you're on with the governor. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. So I'm trying to figure out how we can defund Trump. And one thought was by having the nation's governors put a vote to the residents where all employers withhold federal taxes from the IRS and to use that money to fund the federal services within our state.
Susan, thank you for the call. What do you think? A lot of people think we should secede, Governor Healey, or the blue states pay a lot more money in, and the red states take a lot more money out.
That's been the case historically, right? Mm-hmm. And I understand people's, absolute frustration with paying money in and not getting money back. And now we're seeing the targeting of blue states. I mean, it was bad enough they came after our colleges and universities. They came after our teaching hospitals and our research institutions and, our scientific research-based organizations. And now they're trying to target other funds, for whether it's transportation infrastructure, you name it. I mean, he said that he's going to target blue states, right? So I completely understand people's disgust with that. and also, wanting to do something about that. We're fighting back in court on all of this. We're finding ways to work together, band together as states, and governors are in active conversations on a lot of fronts. I think, more to be continued on some of the things that you raised, Susan, but I certainly appreciate the sentiment and where you're coming from. And, we've got to fight back in all possible ways.
If you weren't the governor, would you support what Susan just proposed?
I don't know enough about the mechanics or logistics of it, Jim, how that would work operationally.
We just don't send them any money.
I certainly, look.
See what they do.
Yeah, I
can't arrest us all.
It's awful what President Trump is doing. And, I say that as a resident, as an American, I've got a D next to my name. But I think I know a lot of R's and independents who, don't see this making any sense, at all. Because, he's making America weaker. I think about just, check this out, Jim, right? When you defund research in Massachusetts, that leads to places like UMass Medical School or, UMass Lowell or the UMass Amherst system or Dartmouth. They're having to lay off people because they can't fund these graduate students and postdocs. And UMass Medical School, I look at UMass, they've had 2 Nobel laureates in recent years come from there because of life-saving cures that they developed at our public research institutions.
The RNA guy.
So what's happening? Yeah. Okay, so here's what's happening in Massachusetts and in other states. You have people who are being recruited right now away from us by countries like China, by countries in Europe, in the Middle East. Why is he giving our talent away? Oh, and by the way, he wants to tack on another $100,000 in order to get visas for people to study here. I mean, we want all the world's talent coming here, staying here, growing business here, growing families here. That's what I want. And he's just driving everybody away, driving talent away from America, not just Massachusetts. By the way, it's why I'm proposing this investment in science and research, $400 million to, support our economic infrastructure here of science and innovation. But, bigger picture, that's just another example of how Donald Trump is leading us down the wrong road, making us less competitive by driving talent from our shores.
Now,
I don't want China to monetize and make money off those next discoveries of life-saving cures and treatments. And you know that we sit about 1.5 miles in each direction from places right now where families are holding on to the last bit of hope that there is a cure or there is a clinical trial that is going to save their loved one. And we've got so many researchers in Massachusetts who are on the brink of incredible discoveries and life-saving cures and treatments to ALS and Alzheimer's and cancers. And to know that Donald Trump has taken that hope away, it's awful, right? It makes no sense. So we got to push back, and we got to push back hard and demand more of the president and of leaders in Congress.
If people want to learn more just about this, it's called the DRIVE Initiative, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Discovery, research, innovation for a vibrant economy.
Google it.
Very important. 1 in 10 research jobs in the country are based in Massachusetts. 1 in 10.
Is Tom still here at the library? Come on up, Tom. Come to the library and ask your microphone and ask your question of the governor.
Hello, Tom.
Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Governor.
Good morning, Tom.
Morning, Jim.
Hi.
Morning,
Hi.
Marjorie.
Hi.
How are you?
I pray for you, Jim.
You do? Somebody's got to,
You're
right?
getting beat up all day long.
That's
over there.
horrible. I can handle it, I think. But go ahead.
So
What's the question?
a specific problem is I'm trying to get a check from the unemployment office reissued for my daughter. This goes back to COVID days. For $8,000 when they told her, they gave her $8,000 by accident. She paid it back. And then they reissued the check. She was moving, got misplaced, couldn't get through to the call lines or anything to get it reissued. Anyway, long story short, she's banging up against its policy not to reissue a check after 1 year. Okay? Bigger issue is, I hope you're working on, or are you working on, I know you were handling a bag of worms, but the call centers and the websites for unemployment, things that would go dead end, people would wait for 2 hours to get through, and then it would just hang up.
Let's get an. We're running out of time.
Okay.
I think she gets the gist
Tom,
of it. Tom, thank you.
Thank you. I want to take your name and number and have our team circle back with you on your daughter's issue. I will say, we've put a lot of investment into that because when I became governor, not only did we inherit a bill of $3 billion because the unemployment assistance operation was not managed well. So that wasn't great. I had to go to the Biden administration and negotiate down a new number. And we're working with employers right now on what we can do to shore up our economy for employers and for residents. So we're doing that. We've put new investment into resources for better call centers, better activity there, better resources to deliver assistance to people. And it is much improved, but we'll take back your daughter's specific situation and see what we can do there.
If you give your contact information to our colleague Nicole, Tom, she'll share it with the governor's office. Thank you. Right to your, no, in that direction, right there. Thank you. Thank you, Tom, for your call. So we only have a minute left, Governor. Anything upbeat you want to talk about?
Hey, upbeat was yesterday, wasn't it?
I mean, I think upbeat was yesterday because, it shows I have unyielding and unabiding faith in the American people. Wow. I really do. I really do. We know what this country has been about. We're going to celebrate it next year, 250 years of this great American experiment. As imperfect as aspects of it have been, it nevertheless is the greatest country in the world. And, people want that, and they want for that. And last night you heard people stand up, come forward, and demand that. So that is hopeful to me. I also, while I have a little bit of time, please visit unitedwaymassbay.org/United Response. This is a fund that will help feed people in our state. Go to your local food pantry, contact your local food bank, see if you can help, what you can do to contribute. Also, if you are out there right now listening, or you know someone out there right now who needs food, call the Project Bread hotline because they are about finding food for people. I'm going to use my last seconds to say that because we have got to take care of people in our state. And as governor, I'm going to look to do that.
Governor, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for coming in. We've been speaking with the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. Thank you very much. We very much appreciate her time. We'll see her again next month. We say goodbye to those listening on NEPM, but make sure to tune in to Fabulous 413, starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Our show continues here in Boston, coming up after the noon news at 89.7 GBH. We're going to open the lines to get your thoughts on Election Day. You can call or text at 877-301-8970. By the way, sorry we couldn't get to all the calls and texts that tried to reach the governor. We were kind of overwhelmed. So anyway, we're going to talk about what happened for the election yesterday. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR, GBH, and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browder and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and the Museum of Science, with their Fun for All Ages seasonal exhibit All Aboard, Trains at Science Park, returns November 22nd, featuring trains, interactives, and magic. More at mos.org/engine. Ever wondered how the construction of the International Space Station was possible? Astronauts and engineers relive the high-stakes Space Lab drama on NOVA, Operation Space Station. Tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browder, ahead on Hour 2 of BPR, live from the Boston Public Library. We start the hour with you, opening up phone and text lines for your reaction to sweeping election wins yesterday for Democrats. New York City, Virginia, New Jersey, California, Pennsylvania, really all around the U.S. If you're terrified about the direction the country is headed, how did it feel seeing last night's results rolling in? And importantly, will establishment Democrats squander this moment or seize it?
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then from the mind of transparent writer Faith Soloway, One Long Earring is a band, sort of. And it's a musical, more or less. They've been described as a lesbian Spinal Tap, and they join us ahead of a very real show that's happening tomorrow night at the Crystal Ballroom in Somerville. Plus, the Culture Show's Jared Bowen. It's all next in the 12 o'clock hour at BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Democratic Socialists Zohran Mamdani will be the next mayor of New York City. NPR's Brian Mann says Mamdani defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Republican Curtis Sliwa.
A year ago, Mamdani, who will be New York's first Muslim mayor, was relatively unknown, and Cuomo was a political titan. But last night, it was Mamdani declaring victory.
The future is in our hands. My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty.
Cuomo was hobbled in this race by sexual harassment scandals that drove him from office in 2021. In his concession, Cuomo voiced anger at Mamdani's embrace of socialism.
We support an economy of jobs, of opportunity, of entrepreneurship.
But many of Mamdani's supporters say his victory was a sign voters want a new, more hopeful politics. Brian Mann, NPR News, New York.
Cuomo was endorsed by President Trump, who threatened to withhold some federal funding to New York City if Mamdani won. First responders are searching for more possible victims at the site of yesterday's UPS cargo plane crash at Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport. Governor Andy Beshear says at least 9 people have died.
But I'm now fairly confident that that number will grow by at least 1. We hope it doesn't grow by too many more. I believe by this afternoon we'll have a pretty good grasp of both the number of fatalities and, if there are any, the number of missing persons that we're still looking for.
Authorities say at least 11 people were injured. Video showed flames on the plane's left wing and a trail of smoke. The aircraft crashed as it was departing for Honolulu. Today, the Supreme Court hears arguments in a case testing whether President Trump may, acting on his own, impose tariffs under a federal law that does not specify that it covers tariffs or duties on imported goods. NPR's Nina Totenberg reports the president is relying on what he calls his emergency powers.
The Supreme Court's conservative supermajority has in the past been receptive to Trump's claims of presidential authority, but most of those Trump victories came in cases involving the so-called emergency docket, allowing Trump policies to take effect on a temporary basis while the litigation played out in the lower courts. The tariff cases are the real thing, with the court having ordered full briefing and expedited arguments. On its face, Trump's opponents have a strong case, but the court is often reluctant to second-guess presidential determinations on questions of national security. Nina Totenberg, NPR News, Washington.
U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour. The Dow up 193 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The State's Department of Transitional Assistance says partial SNAP benefits for low-income families in Massachusetts will resume next week. That's after federal judges in Massachusetts and Rhode Island ruled that the government was required to tap into federal contingency funds to pay for the SNAP program. More than 1 million people in Massachusetts get help paying for food through the federal program. Brian Houghton is with the Massachusetts Food Association, which represents the state's supermarkets and grocery stores.
Thanksgiving, as you know, is coming, and it's difficult for them to say, well, we've got one of the busiest times of the year, but we're losing a certain percentage of people who are going to be able to shop in the stores, or they're now 50% is coming back. So it's just a challenge to stay on top of the issue, and because things are changing all the time.
President Trump initially said no SNAP funds would go out until the federal shutdown is over, but the White House has clarified that it would comply with court orders and supply half of the usual SNAP budget using those supplemental funds. Voters on Nantucket went to a special town meeting Tuesday night, last night, and approved 2 articles relating to short-term rentals. The Inquirer and Mirror reports that by a wide margin, voters said yes to a citizen petition to classify short-term rentals as a principal use in the town zoning code. The article legalizes rentals of any length in all residential districts. Celtics host Wizards at the Garden tonight. Overcast, upper 50s today. A lot of wind out there, too. 54 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from BetterHelp, committed to making mental well-being a priority and offering support in taking on everything life demands, with therapists available to communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public.
He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. Thank you very much. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are broadcasting at the Boston Public Library. The mayor is going to be with us November 18th from noon to 1, and the great cellist Yo-Yo Ma is going to perform here at the library on November 19th. For free. No tickets or RSVP needed. He's just going to show up, but he's going to perform here. This is a guy you pay hundreds of dollars to watch actually perform. Hello again, Jim.
What are you eating?
I was eating my yogurt parfait.
Okay.
That's granola in it.
Okay, good.
I'm finished now.
Okay, good. Now, after an electric night for Democrats across the country, we're opening the lines to get your thoughts. New York City gets its first Muslim mayor, Zohran Mamdani. Democrats won up and down the ticket across the country. Early exit polling shows they even improved their numbers with non-college educated voters, thanks in part to
Our mics are back on.
Okay, as I was saying.
Sorry about that.
Okay, a reinvigorated message around affordability, as the governor said a couple of minutes ago. Here's some sound from the night. You'll hear New York Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, then Governor Newsom of California. That's the passage of Proposition 50, which allowed essentially them to counter what happened in Texas in terms of adjusting the number of seats that will be Democratic versus what happens in Texas. Then New Jersey Governor-elect Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger, the first woman to be elected governor of Virginia. Here they all are.
So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
No crowns, no thrones, no kings. That's what this victory represents.
As the president is backing away from this ideal, cutting SNAP, ripping away health care, terminating Gateway, we here in New Jersey are bound to fight for a different future for our children.
You all chose leadership that will focus relentlessly on what matters most. Lowering costs, keeping our communities safe, and strengthening our economy for every Virginian.
And as some of you probably know, 2 liberal justices of the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania sent back to office. 2 members of the, I believe, Public Service Commission in Georgia go to Democrats.
Yeah.
Is it a blue wave? Is it a sign of a midterm swing a year from now in 2026? And we're interested in hearing from people on both sides of the aisle about what their reaction yesterday was to a Democratic landslide. 877-301-8970. Speaking of landslide, when you looked at the polls before, which we are obsessed with, the one race that was supposed to be a dead heat was Mikey Sherrill and Chattarelli, I believe is how you pronounce his name, or Chitterelli. My apologies, the Republican. It was either a 1 or 2 point difference.
Yeah.
She crushed him. Which suggests the last minute feeling was 1, affordability sells, and 2, saying that Donald Trump, America's had enough of Donald Trump sells too. So, I mean, the Democrats could not have done any better. We want to get your reaction, 877-301-8970.
Well, the turnout was enormous. That was a big factor. I remember seeing late last night, after the polls had already closed in California, there were all these people standing in line. And California took a risk with Gavin Newsom when he said, we're going to try to not, we're going to redistrict here. We're going to gerrymander in reverse, like they've been doing gerrymandering for Republicans in Texas and other places. He wants to gerrymander in favor of Democrats, and it won. It won hugely. I think it was over 50%. I
think it was 62 to 38. It was
62 to 38.
Yeah.
It's absolutely huge. That was absolutely huge. And then you looked at the race in New York City. The youth vote was enormous in New York City because Mondami's talking about affordability. And I think people under 40 or maybe under 50 don't realize how difficult it is for young people. I mean, we talked about this yesterday with Lee Pelton from the Boston Foundation. You're going to be making close to $200,000 to afford to get a house around here in 2025. Not many people are making that kind of money. So the affordability issue is huge. But that's the question: is it all affordability, or is it anti-Trump? Trump said he wasn't on the ballot, but of course...
No, he didn't say. He said Trump not on ballot.
Yeah, Trump not on
That's
ballot.
how he posted on Truth Social. Trump not on ballot.
But some of Trump's candidates certainly they were in New Jersey, and it didn't seem to help.
The analysis, we're going to play what Donald Trump had to say this morning about wanting Senate Republicans to get rid of the filibuster so they could reopen government, not with 60 votes, which they can't get, but 50. Do you know what Chuck Grassley from Iowa said? Democrats swept the under 90 vote. That was the... Because you have to Google that if you don't understand.
Very good.
Actually, it wasn't that good. Here is Donald Trump reacting to last night's election results at a gathering of Senate Republicans, I think this morning, in the state dining room. Here he is.
You read the pollsters. The shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. I think it's very important. We have to get the country open. And the way we're going to do it this afternoon is to terminate the filibuster. And it's possible you're not going to do that. And I'm going to go by your wishes. You're very smart people. We're good friends. But I think it's a tremendous mistake, really. It would be a tragic mistake, actually. It's time.
He's rather subdued. And you know what's really interesting, and I mean this sincerely? You know what one word we didn't hear in anything on Truth Social or this morning out loud?
What?
Rigged. He is acknowledging that the Democrats swept virtually everything last night.
When you look at the picture, those of us who saw the movie, if you're old enough, you saw it. Even if you're young, you've probably seen it because it was a great movie, Dr. Zhivago.
Yeah.
Remember, there's a great scene in Dr. Zhivago when all the rich people in their tuxedos and their gowns and their jewels are having a big party at some Moscow, whatever, and out in the street are people who have ripped, torn clothing, no place to... It's almost like that now. As the governor was talking about before, you have people that are desperate for food, desperate for medical care, scared to death that they're not going to have insurance. Meanwhile, he's having great Gatsby parties and fixing up bathrooms and building this ballroom for $300 million plus.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And flying around the world, and as if this shutdown is not even a big deal. So I think that contrast might be extremely upsetting to a lot of people that may not have voted before, because the turnout yesterday was huge, and thought that maybe they better vote this time.
You know what? Last thing before we get to the calls, 877-301-8970. Talk about contrast, as you said a minute ago. I looked up this morning. Remember when the Democrats were crushed in the midterms for Obama? I think it was 2010. His words were, we took a shellacking, and I looked this up. As president, I take responsibility for that. How refreshing
Well, you're not going to hear that.
Not going to hear that.
And one more of my theories, we have, I would say, basically screwed the poor in America for quite some time, but now we're screwing the middle class. And I think that it's almost analogous to me to the Vietnam War. It was one thing if the sons of the poor were going off to die in Vietnam. When the draft started and suddenly the sons of the middle class were going off, that was a different story. It shouldn't be that way, but I think it is. And when you have people that are making $100,000 and they can't afford anything, that's the middle class saying, what the hell is going on here?
Mary in Mansfield, your first reaction to last night's results across the country. Hi, Mary.
I am absolutely thrilled. I am thrilled about the results. I'm excited about Mondani to finally have someone that's close to Bernie getting a sense of power. It's wonderful. I am so excited. I feel like Chuck is in light. I can't wait to see the show. So it's wonderful.
Mary, thanks for the call. I got to let you go only because the connection's bad. Thank you for your thoughts. 877-301-8970.
Mondami's got to produce something now. So does Cheryl and Spanberger. They have to do something about the cost, and that's going to be the challenge, because he's got the same problem that Boston does. They have to go through the legislature for almost everything in New York, like we do here. And
well, he has actually more power in the city. It's not quite as bad. He does need to go to the state legislature and the governor to raise taxes on the wealthy, which is how he said he'd pay for a bunch of this stuff, but he doesn't have nearly the constraints that Mayor Wu does here. 877-301-8970. You know what's sort of the irony of this? I'm not the first to say it. You could argue the economy is what gave Trump his victory in 2024, and it's his total inability and unwillingness to deal with the economy that brought his party down last night. Sadly for me, I don't think people care nearly as much about the authoritarianism as I think they should, but they care about affordability, and Donald Trump doesn't know how to deliver it, so I'm okay with that. 877-301-8970.
Well, I think it was very interesting in the New York City race. You know, we talked a lot about the defection of Latinos and blacks in the race at 2024. That wasn't true, at least in New York. That the communities of color, particularly men, the men that had defected. Black women always seem to do it right, but the black men that had defected, Latino men that had defected, they were back at least in that race. We'll see how it breaks down across the country.
You know, by the way, I know this is going to be very unpopular because Mamdani seems to be beloved, and I think he is a spectacular young talent. He had two of the worst candidates running against him, maybe in American history. I mean, Curtis Sliwa has been doing what he's doing, Guardian Angel, since I lived in New York City about 112 years ago. And Andrew Cuomo is a sexual predator.
And
I mean, he is.
People's mothers and grandmothers died in nursing homes.
Exactly.
And he covered it up.
I mean, so again, that's not taking anything away from him because he has a fabulous message and he is a brilliant messenger. But your dream is to run against two totally tarnished candidates, and he did.
Well, and I think it's also, you know, we talked this before, Kamala Harris made a big mistake, Joe Biden made a big mistake in not recognizing the working class plight, and I think that's something that he talked about relentlessly, obviously. But you know something, if people haven't seen it, the live opening of Saturday Night Live last week, did a debate among the three of them, Cuomo and Mr. Guardian Angel and Mondami, and it was absolutely a riot with every time they went to Curtis Leo, he was talking about how he got shot 7 times in 1982, how he was suspended from the Verrazano Narrows Bridge by his genitalia stuff. It was absolutely a riot if you want to get a good laugh.
Let's go to Luke in Providence. Hi, Luke. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
So I was just calling to say it's great that they had an awesome night, because I'm a Democrat, but you know, we got to look at the amount of people that vote, the population that votes, because, you know, example, Fall River, 17%. And, you know, I think the one message person that actually came out well with that is Mondali, because he brought 2 million people. That's more than they saw since the 1960s.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. We need to get people to vote. And, you know, I mean, these 17, 25% of the population voting, that's not good. It's just not good.
Well,
the more we get to vote, we win.
Yeah, but there were two things. But there were two things really that got. I mean, he's a terribly charismatic, talented guy. That was number one. And the issues were number two. I think he had both of those things going. I mean, you look at Chuck Schumer. You don't think very talented, charismatic guy, and his issues aren't so great either. So you need to have reasons. And I think the Democrats have not put forth really impressive candidates a lot of the time, too.
Well, you know, also, can I address, and we'll get to your back to calls. Let me address this whole notion of this huge divide in the Democratic Party. As I said the other day, I mean, Tiffany was right. All politics is local. The Mondani message was exactly the same as Spanberger's in Virginia and Sherrill's. Affordability was front and center. He has different ways to get there.
Right.
I don't think that really matters unless the Trump forces brilliantly, like they did to Kamala Harris with trans stuff, by the way, for that disgusting commercial they spent $200 million on, unless they can be successful saying Mamdani is the Democratic Party, not just the mayor of New York City. I think the affordability message across the board with different delivery methods in different jurisdictions is exactly where the opposition party should be.
But I also think that there's especially in the Latino community, I would imagine there are a lot of people who are extremely upset, as you just mentioned before, to see these, 25-year-old women with kids that have got papers and have the right to be here being hauled off by ICE because they're Latinos working at car washes. I mean, I think that the scenes of these terrible ICE raids is bothering a lot of people,
I hope so,
too.
but how about the farmer? You and I have talked about this, I think, off the air. How about the farmer in the Midwest whose wife was deported? They both voted he voted for Trump. He's a citizen. And he said he'd vote for Trump again. So don't count your proproverbial chickens,
But that was
Marjorie.
a while ago, wasn't it?
It was a couple of months ago.
Yeah. I think it's gotten worse and worse and worse because obviously Trump is not going after the worst, and that creep Stephen Miller is not going after the worst. And you take one look at him and you think, this is the guy there's something seriously wrong with him.
You think so?
Yes, I do.
Carlos in New Bedford, you're next on BPR. We're talking about the results last night. Hi.
Good morning. So I wanted to call and let you know I'm an independent voter.
Yep.
I wasn't surprised with the voting, seeing how it's New York. But if people don't understand what's going on there with New York City and this Mondani, you actually voted in communism because he's clear of what his motives are.
Yeah.
So,
Carlos, why don't you define
Carlos?
Why don't you define
What's a
communism, and then we'll continue. Go ahead.
You want?
No, I don't want. I want you to define.
Listen. You're not going to let me talk because
no, Carlos. Excuse me.
Government-run grocery
Pot him down
stores.
for a second, please. Don't hang up on him, Carlos. You said communism in New York. Marjorie and I asked a reasonable question, which is,
what's
since
a communist?
we're uninformed, what is communism? Go ahead, Carlos. Tell us.
Government-run grocery stores, higher taxes. Free buses, free everything. Where's that land? Where does that tell you where that lands? Okay. So I'm not shocked of what's going.
And Social Security. It's working.
We should point out, Carlos. Communism means eliminating private property. That means you wouldn't own your house. You wouldn't own anything. That's what it means. It means the government owning everything. It's a political and economic ideology.
Carlos, if Donald Trump had not called him a communist, would you have called him a communist?
Yeah, that's what he is. Go look at it, what his father is. Do you know that his father just came out with a book?
Carlos, thank you for your call. We really appreciate it. We enjoyed talking to you a lot.
For people to talk about how radical he is, I say to myself, what is so radical crazy about getting help with childcare?
Freezing rents and rent stabilizing apartments.
And by the way, Bloomberg.
Childcare. The only thing that's a little bit out of the norm, even though some other places are doing it, is government-owned grocery stores. That is a little different.
Yeah, but it's not free grocery stores.
I understand that.
They could charge less money because they're government-owned buildings. And by the way, Bloomberg did the subsidized rent thing when he was the mayor. He did it 3 times. So de
Blasio did it 3 times.
Bloomberg.
De Blasio. 3 times.
The rent subsidy thing? I think it was Bloomberg.
The rent freezes were 3 times by de Blasio.
Okay, I think it was Bloomberg.
Okay.
He's a big capitalist, is my point. De Blasio, not so much.
We got to take a break.
We're taking a break. We'll be right back. We're talking about the election yesterday. What do you think?
No, we're not. Actually, coming up right away is a preview of, based on what we heard this morning, a fabulous production. It's going to be in Somerville tomorrow night. One long earring.
The Trump administration is firing scores of immigration judges, and an NPR investigation shows there may be some common threads.
Anyone who ever represented a non-citizen at any point in their lives, whether they also worked for DHS, whether they worked for ICE, that seems to be the indelible stain that got them fired.
I'm Juana Summers. Hear it from the judges themselves on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4. Here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Forge Heat Pumps in Newton. All-in-one heat pumps provide heating and cooling for your whole home or just a single room. Learn more about how they work and how they can help shrink your carbon footprint at forgeheatpumps.com. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Mayor Wu's here on the 18th. Yo-Yo Ma is going to be here to talk to us and perform on the 19th. He's got nothing on these people, by the way. It's time for a very special live music Wednesday performance of BPR at the library. From the mind of transparent writer and producer Faith Soloway and singer-songwriter Bitch, One Long Earring is a Spinal Tap-esque tribute, easy for you to say, Jim, to the lesbian trailblazers of the 60s and 70s folk movement. 3 of the band's 5 members are with us today. Faith, Bitch, joined by singer-songwriter Melissa Ferrick. Hi, Melissa. Nice to see you, too. On drums, catch their web series on YouTube and catch the One Long Earring musical/concert happening in person tomorrow night. I will be there with my kids, 7:30 at the Crystal Ballroom at the Somerville Theater in Davis Square. This is endless. crystalballroomboston.com for tickets. For now, here is One Long Earring performing One Long Earring. Welcome, everybody.
The sun was setting on the bonfire. 'Twas a strawberry moon and an orange sky. A bowl of crystals, jar of for the passing of June until July. Strawberry moon and orange sky. Oh God, is moon we your daughter of the strawberry moon and an orange sky. We're ripe, we're ready for the mother, praying for you to arrive. Strawberry moon and an orange sky. And the crystals began to shake, and the strawberry moon and orange sky opened up one witchy eye. Then she appeared as clear as day, strong and real and really gay. She wore one long earring, one long earring, one long earring, one long earring. Catch the feeling, catch it, girls, catch it. It's incredibly long. Masculine, womanly, beaded and feathery, lacy and leathery. 2 kinds of energy, masculine, womanly, beaded and feathery, lacy and leathery. This is our legacy. Women can you feel me? We are one long earring, one long earring, one long earring, one long earring. Catch the feeling, catch it, girls, watch it's incredibly long.
That was fantastic. One Long Earring, a musical/concert happening in person tomorrow night, 7:30 at the Crystal Ballroom at the Somerville Theater in Davis Square. You want to get tickets, crystalballroomboston.com for tickets. Thank you so much. So Faith, what's One Long Earring, please?
What is it?
Yeah.
Look at us. Really, it is our lesbian spinal tap.
This lesbian spinal tap.
Yeah.
The earring is not that long, is it really?
Well, it could
okay, it's longer now. I see it.
Mine's really long, Marjorie.
Yours is really long.
No, I got the longest.
Well, that takes care of all 3 of you. No, but wait a minute. One Long Earring, for the uninitiated, has an historical significance, does it not?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been working in this character for a really long time. Then I roped in Bitch here.
We know she is.
We know you do. To help with the entire idea of One Long Earring as this. It's the comeback of a feminist lesbian rock group that maybe should have stayed home. Shouldn't have come back.
Melissa, how'd you get involved with these 2?
It's Faith's fault, really.
Yeah.
I've known Faith since, I think, 1997 or something.
Yeah.
So whenever Faith asks you to do something, it's a good idea to say
What's it like working with them? What's it like working with Faith? So tell the truth.
I love working with Faith and Bitch. I mean, I've known Bitch also since the 2000s. We've toured together. I mean,
you're not making eye
incredible.
contact with me when you answer that. So is that true?
I'm not as good at being on We live paid her TV to as you say are. it.
Okay. So, Bitch, what do you think about working with them right there?
Oh, I love it.
You do?
Yeah.
Why is that?
There's a playfulness to everything that Faith does that I love to jump
I hear they're
in
a
the pen with.
taskmaster. Is that true or is that not?
That is not true.
No.
I'm the
No?
taskmaster.
Oh, you are? Is that true?
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
The two of us,
okay.
yeah.
But Faith writes the stuff. Is that correct?
I write a lot of it, but Bitch and I actually collaborated for the whole piece in a certain way. I wrote the script, but she really has been with me writing the One Long Earring ecosystem. We do videos, and we have a concert, and so she's my producing partner as well.
So what are people going to see tomorrow in Somerville?
They're going to see 6, is it 6 of us?
Six of us, yeah, 6.
6 women that haven't been together for 30 years, and all the drama that has gone on, but the changing landscape of gender and politics, and we've all slept together, all of that stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
And we're making our comeback at the Clotted Pot, which was the venue that,
The Clotted Pot.
gave us our start. Right. So you'll come into the Clotted Pot, kind of the same as it
Grab
always
yourself
was.
a nut loaf with a side of scrambled tofu.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to be there, by the way. Trust me.
Great.
So, can you describe your characters in this thing? To start with you, Melissa.
Sure.
Who are you in this thing?
So my name is Alex. I got to name myself, which I appreciated, and I'm like the heartthrob that wants everybody to get along. So even though they broke up on stage, that's the big idea behind the story. The beginning of it is that I just want everybody to get along, and I have a little bit of Fonzie. Because I just like Chachi, and I'm like this. I'm like, hey, what's up? Let's play the songs.
Okay, so Bitch, who are you?
I'm Terry Plum. I'm kind of the man-hater of the group. And I'm Joan's longtime on-again, off-again lover.
Would that be Joan right there?
I am Joan.
This is Joan Stone Suarez Levy.
The mastermind of the group.
Joan Stone Suarez Levy.
Tell us about Joan Stone Suarez Levy.
Joan could have been a cantor. She could
Explain what a cantor is for the few people who don't know.
A cantor is the person that has all the songs going through the services of a Jewish synagogue or what have you. She was an early music student. She knows everything about everything and too much about nothing.
Okay.
I like that. So there's a little satirical edge
Oh, you
here.
think so?
Yes, we would hope.
Would you like to elaborate on that? What are you satirizing?
Good. To be Faith for a second, I think this is a community a lot of people are not familiar with. I mean, we don't see older lesbians playing their own instruments, having fun, talking about a movement that actually was kind of fossilized, which is the lesbian folk scene, feminist movement.
Wait a second. What do you mean we don't see older lesbian musicians? Where'd they go?
A good question.
No, I mean, you would know, wouldn't you?
I mean, me as Faith or me as Joan.
You can answer any way you want.
I actually, they're still around, but they weren't. There was a heyday, and they never lifted, and that's what my character is wanting. We want to go back to a time where we could have lifted ourselves without the need of men.
Yeah. So why the fossilization?
That's just patriarchy.
Patriarchy.
Patriarchy?
Yeah.
Do we
over
read that
and
about
over.
the lesbian bars? There were all these lesbian bars
Oh,
all
yeah.
over
That's
America,
right,
and then
not
they all
anymore.
sort of
It's
disappeared.
One down the street. What are you talking about? Right down
It's the only one left.
Danny's,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
It finally came back.
So why is that?
It's patriarchy, Marjorie.
It's
I mean,
patriarchy?
It's gay.
All the women
Gay
stopped
men
drinking.
have it. Gay men have the money, and
They
the
do have a
lesbians
lot of
don't.
money.
The
It's very
lesbians
annoying,
don't.
isn't it?
It's super
Yeah,
annoying.
That's how they
very
look so
annoying.
good.
I feel like
I know.
Marjorie's getting the right amount of oomph up, and she
I
might
think
cross
so.
over.
She might cross over.
Well, I've tried men. Maybe, what the hell.
Yeah.
Hey, we're always open, Marjorie.
Exactly. So
Well,
why?
I mean, that's not totally true. Why don't you explain to them why you left Smith? You went to Smith for a
you
year.
did?
I did.
And why'd you leave, Marjorie?
Well,
Tell the
okay.
truth.
Let's hear.
I come from Fall River.
There you go.
I was a little backward in terms of, life and all this kind of thing. And I got to Smith College, and I was surrounded by gay women. I didn't even know gay women
She couldn't
existed.
get a date. That was the point she's trying to get to. So she moved to Stanford.
I couldn't get a date. I switched my colleges. But you know what?
She did. That's
I
what
did.
she did.
I wanted
She
to
should
get
be
a
in the
date.
play.
And I was very backward. Let's put it that way.
Okay,
I was
well,
very backward.
we could write her in.
I've tried to resolve that that over the years. You know, I tried
Look,
to
we're
get
missing this
That's
character,
good.
actually.
I think we are missing the woman who should have and never tried, was too scared, and now she's ready.
I
There's
like
a lot
that.
of those.
You know
There's
something?
a lot of those.
You're very perceptive.
Yeah.
You know, Faith, I hate to jump to conclusions because all I've seen is a 4-minute video, which is spectacular.
It's a riot.
But assuming this is as good as that is, and this was and will be, because we heard rehearse the other deal, it's tomorrow night, not the whole deal, right? I mean, what happens here?
Thanks, Jim. I mean, we really want to start moving this around. I have dreams of it being a little musical, a big musical. I think there's a lot of good story and comedy and songs, and I think I mean, that's my thing. I love writing musicals. So to have a band on stage that tells a story that's the dream for the project.
Yeah, beautiful harmonies. I love the harmonies.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, very good.
You're about to say, I can tell that something is like almost about to come out, bitch, and you're not. Don't think twice. Just do
You
it.
know, I was just gonna say, like, we're just trying to rebuild something. Like,
We are.
I had a notorious rage problem that I have been working on for the last 20.
No, this is the character.
Kind of both.
It's a little both.
Kind of both. And
Thinly veiled.
yeah,
Thinly veiled.
you know, we had our big breakup on stage at the
Which
Labia
is
Majora Fest. So, you know, since then it's been a reputation that I'm just trying to get out from under.
Yeah.
So we're
She
hoping
almost
at the Clotted
stabbed somebody
Pot.
with her fiddle bowl.
I really should have
no.
stabbed
Marjorie
him,
almost
but-
went to that, by
my
the way,
goodness.
but she
yeah.
decided
Yeah.
she wasn't ready.
She was on the list, I thought.
Exactly.
I want to talk about this boiling resentment of
Okay.
the lesbian community and the gay men community. I mean,
Yes,
let's
she's
elaborate
there.
on that a
Yeah,
little
like
bit.
in 15 seconds. 'cause you gotta
Provincetown,
perform.
Marjorie. Provincetown, maybe?
Donald
Wow.
Trump. Donald Trump. You know what I
yep.
mean? I mean, the
Is he gay now?
Okay.
Well, I just think all these gay guys that support him.
Not-
I don't get
oh,
it. You know
I
what
know.
I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, they're double
We can't-
mailing.
They're double
comes in
mailing.
there. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
What
It's
are
very
you
annoying.
What are you performing in about 30 seconds, Faith?
We're performing.
Joan.
Yes, Joan. We're performing
Sorry.
a song. So we've had a lot of we're back together. Are we not back together? This song.
She's
is
had a
about,
lot of exes.
Oh, that's very
I
sad.
thought that was me.
She's been busy. Good for you.
Right. And do we let each other back in every time she comes to my door? You know, do we start up again? So that's it's our little theme song for Terry and myself.
Okay, so what you have to do is gently put your headsets down on the table. You will walk back to your positions, and Marjorie will explain to people how they get tickets.
I will.
To hear the whole deal tomorrow
Okay.
night. What do you think of that?
Yep. Okay.
Faith Soloway, Bitch, and Melissa Ferrick, 3 of the 6. It's 6?
That's right.
6.
Okay.
Performing tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, 7:30, Crystal Ballroom at the Somerville Theater in Davis Square. Go to crystalballroomboston.com for tickets. That's crystalballroomboston.com for tickets. One Long Earring is now going to be performing Ready to Try Again and Look a Lot Like Me.
Here they are.
Sometimes the wind flows in the right direction, blowing in an old friend from the sky. In past times I have guarded my affection as friendships turn to lovers by and by. This time I'm saying, walk right through the door, lap it up at my shore if you please. This time I'm saying, let's play like children, tumble down the hill and scrape our knees. Red-tailed hawk came flying home, give her feed so she won't roam. Wine, weed, and poetry, keep that bird flying close to me. I'm ready to try again. Ready to try again. My road was going in all directions, just running from the darkness in my mind. And you showed a deepening affection, mothering my child from behind. But this time I'm saying, I'll bang right down your door, I'll suckle at your shore if you please. I please. This time I'm saying, let me plant my roots here, let me pluck the fruit from your tree. Your red-tailed hawk came flying home, give her feed so she won't roam. Wine, weed, and poetry, keep that bird flying close to me. I'm ready to try again. Ready to try again. Ready to try again. Ready to try again.
At 7:30 at the Crystal Ballroom at the Somerville Theater in Davis Square. crystalballroomboston.com for tickets. One more time, crystalballroomboston.com for tickets. You can also find them on Instagram at The One Long Earring and their web series on YouTube at One Long Earring. Thanks so much to Faith Soloway, Bitch, and Melissa Ferrick for joining us. Thank you very much. Coming up for this quick break, we're going to be joined by GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen. He's going to tell us about the Kennedy Center. The ticket sales there have plummeted since Donald Trump took it over. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH live from the BPL, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, grab your hoverboard and set your time circuits. Our Wednesday watch party is heading to 1985 for Back to the Future.
1.21 gigawatts. What the hell is a gigawatt?
40 years later, Marty, Doc, and the DeLorean are still riding that 88-mile-an-hour blast. Cue up the movie, watch along with us, and call in to share your favorite moments. That's on The Culture Show today at 2 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Global View Communications, providing customized inclusion strategy recommendations to organizations that align with their culture and business priorities. Learn more at inclusionitsworthit.com. Global View Communications. Inclusion. It's worth it. And the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, presenting the luminous watercolors of Winslow Homer, together for the first time in a generation, of light and air. Winslow Homer in watercolor is on view now. More at mfa.org.
Welcome back to BPR, Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Let me just say again, by the way, I am really excited about this tomorrow night. To get tickets, crystalballroomboston.com. Faith and Bitch and Melissa and their colleagues.
Yes.
They're just great. In any case, we're at the library and we're stalling because we don't know where Jared is.
Well, we can talk about the...
Well, I haven't said what's going on yet.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm supposed to say, Marjorie, the mayor will be here on November 18th. Did you know that?
I do.
And do you know that Yo-Yo Ma is going to be here on the 19th?
Yes, I do.
Do you know that no tickets or RSVP is required?
You will see him perform Yo-Yo Ma, one of the great cellists of the 20th century or 21st century. What
Whatever
century
it
are we
is.
in?
And the 20th century, too.
Whatever.
And we are, as now I can say, we are not being joined now at the library desk by Jared Bowen because we have no... Oh, there he is. Where is he?
Here comes Jared. He's walking over right now.
Let's judge Jared for being late for his segment on
Yes,
live
some very
radio.
important things to take care of.
There's a lot of scorn in this audience over
But we're
this,
gonna
and I don't
start
blame
off-
you, frankly.
We're going to start off, Jared, with the most exciting thing, except for the elections I've heard in days
Hi,
or
Jared.
weeks. That
How are you?
he's well.
His mic doesn't
microphone's
work.
not
We don't
working
care.
either.
It doesn't.
But we'll try to. Yeah.
It does work now. Try talking again.
It's great to be with you both. Good. So the Kennedy Center ticket sales have plummeted since Donald Trump took it over, and we've noted how he mistakenly calls the Kennedy Center the Trump Kennedy Center. Slips that out sometimes. You know what I mean? So they've plummeted. I could not be happier.
Well, I have to say, we saw this coming. I'm not happy because nobody wants to see a performing arts organization fail, but this is exactly what a lot of people suggested would happen when you have a complete takeover and you put people in charge who don't necessarily know how the institution needs to be programmed. So basically what the Washington Post has found is that there are 43% of tickets unsold for typical productions now, which imagine what that looks like. You walk into a house and
It's half empty.
half the audience is empty.
And some of the productions are free. The Christian programming is apparently often free, and thousands of tickets are comped, so they're also free. They can't even give away free tickets.
Right, this is a substantial loss of money. They were talking about in some of the productions, if you have a house that's that empty, it's a six-figure loss. It's about $100-something thousand. Also, they've driven other productions away, like Hamilton, and Hamilton just wrapped up its run here in Boston. It was in Boston for, I think, somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks. That's a long time. Typically, shows just come in for 2 weeks weeks now, and then they're on to the next city. So when you have a juggernaut like Hamilton, where they have guaranteed ticket sales, which is why it can sit down in a city for 2 months, that's millions of dollars in revenue. So this is how much they've lost by having this huge cratering of ticket sales at this point.
Can I make 3 quick points?
Certainly.
One, they say in this Washington Post story, the one sure ticket that is there is Sound of Music. Always sells out. Nowhere near selling out. That's number one. Number two, when they took over, their criticism of their predecessors was they didn't understand how to get the right productions to maximize revenue. Obviously, it's not being maximized. Plus, this to me, talk about breaking news, Melissa Ferrick, in addition to her drumming and all these other capabilities, and she teaches and this sort of thing, reps certain other bands who have performed at the Kennedy Center, and guess what they have not been? Paid.
Yeah.
I mean, it is they have played and they're not paid, which is what Donald Trump does.
Which he's done his whole life. He's been sued over and over again for not paying people that built his casinos, construction workers at various places. I wonder if they got paid to tear down the East Wing. We don't know that yet, do we? And so then moving on to we move on to Lincoln.
But wait, before we move on, what do they have a plan? What do they do?
No, I mean, this is the point that first of all, we wouldn't have even known this but for the reporting by the Washington Post, because like so much other facts from the administration, they're not sharing them, whether it be labor statistics at this point or things, bellwethers of the economy. They've also instructed the Kennedy Center not to release ticket sales and figures. It was, again, through the Washington Post reporting that they got internal documents to have an understanding. But the other factor here is the brain drain. We see this happening with heads of the Smithsonian, a couple of the Smithsonian institutions. We've seen this happen with all factors of government at this point, and then especially at the Kennedy Center, where people have either been fired or they've walked out the door just because they can't work in these conditions any longer. That means the people who knew how to run these institutions, the people who knew how to fire off the payroll and pay bands and shows and whatnot, have also walked out the door. So they're scrambling to rebuild, and clearly we now know they're not rebuilding in a productive manner.
By the way, one anonymous texter just said it's harder to get tickets to the library than the Kennedy Center.
That's
which
right. We're in demand.
Is true. I'm sorry, Margie. Let's move on to bathrooms.
Before we get to bathrooms, I did not know that what else Trump has done. He's chopped down this magnolia tree that was planted in 1829
Where's
by
this?
Andrew at the White House.
I didn't know this either.
Yeah, I didn't know it either. Chopped down a magnolia tree.
That Andrew Jackson planted in memory of his wife,
In memory of his
Rachel.
wife.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So
And why did he do that? What's the purpose of that?
I don't know. He's a tacky vulgarian.
So again, this goes back to
Vulgarian's
the
a
things
great
that don't
word.
have
Is
to
it
be.
a great word?
I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
The things that don't have to be disclosed, because the truth of the matter is, a lot of the White House, the president does have the jurisdiction to do whatever he or she,
That's
as
right.
the case may be, wants to do. Presidents have honored the tradition of passing historical change through the commissions who are appointed to be mindful of historical precedents and what fits in eras, how we can evolve the White House and things of that nature. But we know that the Trump administration has paved over the Rose Garden, cut down this tree, which I also did not know, dismantled the East Wing without telling anybody, and now has remodeled the Lincoln bathroom.
The Lincoln bathroom.
Which I have to say, I don't completely have an issue with, because it was something that needed to be updated. If you see the before and after, there's the mint green walls with the Art Deco interior. It doesn't completely align with what the president has said, that the marble is more in keeping with the time of Lincoln. Well, that's not completely true,
No,
because
not
for the
true.
first part of his life, he used an outhouse out in Kentucky. So
he should have built an outhouse.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing, though? While I agree with you, it may need something, because it didn't look so hot before from the photographs I've seen. The issue, to me, is not him doing it. The issue is the tin-ear-osity of this guy when, 42 million people in the country, 1.1 million in Massachusetts, are not getting food stamps, not getting SNAP benefits, and he's building a 300 million is ridiculous, $500 million ballroom and a marble bathroom. It's just,
listen to this one.
He doesn't give a damn about anybody except himself.
The West Wing colonnade, he added gold-framed photos of every American president except for Joseph R. Biden Jr., whom he depicted as an autopan.
Yeah. Have you seen those photographs? It's disgraceful.
It is.
I've seen them
Everything's
too.
gold molding.
And you have to, and this all keeps in line with the party they just had at Mar-a-Lago, which is the Great Gatsby-themed party. So this announcement about the renovation of the Lincoln bathroom happened just on the heels of that. And yes, exactly to your point, there are things in this country that need operating and or opening at this point, and the president seems very fixated on all of the aesthetic changes he's making to the White House. I think you've neglected to mention the gold leaf that he's added in the cabinet room,
everywhere.
in the Oval Office. So at a time when people are literally going hungry right now, and he's very concerned about gold leaf, this is the priority of the administration.
Before, it's like the Dr. Zhivago scene with all the rich people whining and dining and dancing, and the people on the edge of revolution are marching in the streets hungry. And it's, gosh, it's an apt comparison.
Yeah, and I have to say, as the arts and culture person too, while the president does have jurisdiction, we have to be reminding each other that this is the people's house. The White House is our house. This is what our taxes fund. This is what our history has created. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be up to the prerogative of one individual to decide how to literally dismantle and turn to waste part of that house.
Well, also, didn't he fire last week the commission that is supposed to advise on these, whatever the commission is that does that?
Yeah. Well, he's fired lots of people, as we know. Okay, we're moving on.
Don't you wish I had never shown up now?
No, actually, it's...
Okay, so let's talk about...
Remember when I tried to report in live from Mar-a-Lago? What a disaster that was?
Yeah, you got in a car accident. Right?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just the car accident. I decided I would do brilliant live reporting from the scene.
That's right.
And I borrowed a friend of ours, common friend of all three of us, his car, which was a relatively nice car. And as I was driving by Mar-a-Lago, calling in live to the show with Marjorie and a fill-in co-host, I rear-ended a pickup truck with a Trump flag on it in front of me, right in front of Mar-a-Lago, totally pancaked my friend's car, and of course, no damage done to a guy who was really generous and wonderful, the guy driving the Trump truck. So that was my report from Mar-a-Lago. I assumed, by the way, naively, you could just drive into the damn thing. It's got a big fence, kind of. You ever seen it?
I have not seen it.
Well, you haven't seen it.
How many hours into borrowing that car were you when that happened?
In all seriousness, Jared knows the story. I had borrowed this friend's car, which was a very nice car, for a grand total of about 8 minutes.
Yeah.
He lives about 8 minutes from Mar-a-Lago. I had it 8 minutes. Pancake.
It's amazing that Jim, who drives about 8 miles an hour at every juncture, could get into an accident. Jim's on the Mass Turnpike going 50.
I passed
like an old lady.
Jim knows this.
Well,
I passed you on 495 a few years ago. I was honking and everything. You never even looked out the window
because
you were
I was focused on the road.
He has no peripheral vision.
I don't.
That's what he claims when I try to wave at him to talk. He claims he can't see me because he has no peripheral vision.
No, I told you the truth. I have peripheral vision for some things, not for others. I've always been honest.
There's the answer.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to divert to this
What's going on
discussion.
at the Athenaeum, please?
There are two. I love that this is happening in this city. It's been a while since we've seen this kind of collaboration among institutions, or in this case, between institutions. It's the Gardner Museum and the Boston Athenaeum, and both are looking at the work of Alan Rohan Crite, who was a black artist working throughout much of the 20th century in Boston, and he was somebody who was documenting the city. He was somebody who was finding the divine in the everyday. So if you go to either the Athenaeum right now, or if you go to the Gardner Museum, you will see his paintings of city life in Boston. At the Athenaeum, you'll find more of his watercolors, more of the oil paintings at the Gardner, as well as documentation of his life. But this is a man who just created. His mother was an art lover, so she trotted him around the city so that he encountered places like the Gardner. He encountered the Athenaeum. His mother actually had lunch with Mrs. Gardner at one point when she had gone there as part of a school trip along with her young son. And so he had this history embedded in him, and he loved this city so much, and that comes through in these paintings that you see. Going back, I derailed myself there, talking about the divinity in the everyday. You'll find a streetscape where the Madonna is sort of hovering above, suggesting that there is a religious being with us at all times, and this is how much he cared about people, that they should have somebody like that in their midst. But he's also somebody who moved away from oil painting. He had a printing press in his own home, which, by the way, is just up the street on was on Columbus Avenue. It's been condoized now. Next year there'll be a park opening, refurbished park opening in his name.
Oh, good.
But he had a printing press in his home so he could mass produce his work and get it out. He was just so prolific, so energetic, so progressive for his time, and all of of this is told in the stories and the artwork in these two institutions.
Can you spend, I am embarrassed to say that I had never been in the Athenaeum until about 2 or 3 years ago.
And it's just been redone, too, about 4 or 5 years ago.
What a resource. Can you describe to people what, because as you said, a joint exhibit between the Gardner and the Athenaeum. Tell people what the Athenaeum is.
Well, I'll start with the Boston Athenaeum historically was a more reserved space. A library for a lot of people felt the upper echelon in Boston. This is, by the way, where some of George Washington's own library still resides.
I pulled a book off a shelf that, with permission, and that George Washington had read, that has George Washington's handwritten notes in the margins. It is so thrilling. It's unbelievable. But go ahead. It's really wonderful.
They have treasure after treasure at the Athenaeum, from the books to the artwork to manuscripts to pieces of Boston's history. But as part of the renovation and restoration you're talking about, Marjorie, over the years there's also been this opening up of the Athenaeum so that it really is a library for all people. There are still memberships, but everybody is welcome in. Everybody is welcome in to see this show. And so one of our great institutions telling the story of this great city is now really so much more open to all. And the treasures there are just staggering.
You know what's also at the Athenaeum now? The Catered Affair.
the
Which runs
restaurant.
the Newsfeed Cafe.
It's supposed to be
It's really
a fantastic restaurant.
Breakfast there. It's great.
He's unbelievable. He goes to every restaurant in Boston. So if you had a choice between, I suppose you can't really pick.
Is that a criticism or admiration?
You're a man about town, Jim.
I am a man about town.
I popped into Foley on my way out of the Allen.
He's a man about town. There he is.
Yeah. So it's not really fair, I guess, to ask if you only could go to one. Should you go to the Athenaeum?
You should definitely go to both.
Go to both.
Definitely carve out time. And how great to be able to do that, to see in different sectors of his work, because also while he was doing all of this, he was working in the Navy Yard in Charlestown as a draftsman. And so he was always bringing art to the fore no matter what he did. And again, all of these different stories are told at all the institutions.
You know, you may have answered this question, in which case I apologize. I was so focused on Mar-a-Lago I wasn't listening for about 15 seconds.
Can you
explain how they're dividing? That's not true. Can you decide how are they dividing up this deal? Did you say that?
I did say that.
Say it again.
You'll find a lot of the watercolors, and especially the Navy Yard history at the Athenaeum. You'll find more of the the oil paintings and the divinity, and really the stories of his life, including videos at the Gardner Museum. Because one thing he really wanted to do, it's sad that it didn't happen, but he wanted to turn his home, not unlike Isabella Stewart Gardner, into an artist's museum. That didn't happen ultimately, but you see everything that he collected to make that happen.
Why isn't this kind of dual thing done? I love that it's in one place in town and another. Why isn't it done more often?
And I should point out that Gardner just did this last time too with the Pau Art Center for their work of the Chinese artist who made the large-scale sculpture.
We talked about that.
Vegetables. I don't know. I remember years ago when there was Egypt in Boston, when Boston Lyric Opera, Boston Ballet, the Museum of Fine Arts all did Egyptian-themed shows. But it's been a while. But I think now that we have this big change in leadership here with new director of the ICA, the MFA, the Huntington, the symphony, goes on and on. I think we're going to see collaboration again because there's a whole new level of energy in town.
Now, we're not talking about the show now. We're talking about the show later. Is that what we're doing, Jim?
We're going to do that later. Except you can, I don't want to ruin this for when you come back. I'm really excited about this show you have today.
Back to the Future?
Give us a taste of what you're doing, which is the first. Well, tell them what you're doing.
Well, today is a very significant day if you love movies, especially 80s movies. November 5th is very significant because November 5th, 1955 is the day Marty McFly went back to in Back to the Future, because it was the day that Doc had the accident where he got the idea for the flux capacitor, so he wanted to revisit that day in his house.
This is a great movie.
So today we're going to have our Wednesday watch party. If you've seen the movie recently or remember the movie or have time to watch it between now and 2 o'clock, certainly do. I rewatched it this
this
so we're going to spend the whole hour, Callie, Edgar, and I are talking
right here.
I love when he's trying to get his parents together so that they can fall in love, and he's born, and all that's a great little.
What's happening instead? His mother's falling in love with him.
That's right.
A little plot twist.
Right. That would be kind of.
Did you ever call in a radio show your whole life?
No.
Is that really true?
No. Sometimes people would call me to talk about stories. I did, but no.
I know you called in as a guest, but did you ever call in as a caller your whole life?
Did you, Gerald?
When I was a kid.
You did?
I called into one of the stations because it was a movie trivia thing, and I called in. I got on the air.
Wow.
And I got a magnet from the
You got a magnet.
Congratulations on
Okay,
that.
we're going to talk with Jared again about his show before the end of our own show. But Jared Bowen, of course, is executive arts editor, host of the Culture Show. 2 o'clock right here. It's going to be at the Boston Public Library as soon as we are done. Coming up next, so we're going to talk to John King about, of course, last night's election. You're listening to BPR and 89.7 GBH at the Boston Public Library.
If you made a recent contribution to GBH, your donation could be doubled by your employer through our Matching Gifts program. Find out if your donation can be matched at gbh.org/matchinggifts.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Moderna. mNEXSpike, COVID-19 vaccine mRNA by Moderna, is available. Pharmacists can help with any questions about mNEXSpike. And Central Square Theater with Summer 1976, Pulitzer Prize winner David Auburn's play about friendship, memory, and small moments that change our lives forever. Summer 1976 begins November 6th. CentralSquareTheater.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 3 of BPR Live from the Boston Public Library. CNN Chief National Correspondent John King, a protector of the magic wall on CNN, will zoom in with a reaction to massive wins for Democrats across the country. We'll hone in on New York, where he's been reporting on the mayor's race as part of his project All Over the Map.
I'm Marjorie Egan, and then if we're not totally burned out from politics, or text at 877-301-8970. But if we're feeling totally fried by politics, we will pivot. Jim's favorite word?
I hate that word.
You hate that word. We'll talk about exclamation points, Jim. Apparently, there is a stark gender divide. I use them constantly in texts, and Jim never does. It's a factor of 3-to-1 women versus men. Politics or exclamation points, a sort of choose-your-own adventure. Call in on the third hour of BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Israeli military has taken a group of international journalists into Gaza to observe the dividing line between Israeli-occupied Gaza and the area where Gaza's population lives under Hamas control. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from inside Gaza for the first time after 2 years of war.
I feel like my heart sank just climbing up to the top of this mound of dirt, looking at this expanse of destruction, piles of cement, bombed out schools and homes. Israel, for its part, is active. The war is over, but it is still locating tunnel shafts, demolishing them, and other infrastructure. And Hamas, for its side, is regrouping in Gaza. We are here accompanied by Israeli troops, but Israel still, more than 2 years after the war began, is not allowing journalists into Gaza independently to interview Palestinians and to see their lives up close. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Gaza.
American voters care about the economy. Campaign messaging about affordability helped Democratic candidates outperform Republicans in the first major elections since President Trump returned to office. It also offers a playbook for the higher-stakes midterm elections next year. In some key outcomes Tuesday, Democrats won governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia. Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger is the first woman elected to Virginia's top office. On NPR's Morning Edition, she discussed her approach to immigration and customs enforcement actions in the Commonwealth.
My approach will be when there is a warrant signed by a judge, certainly law enforcement can and must work with federal agencies. That's how I always worked task force or joint issues. But I do not want local Virginia law enforcement doing the administrative actions of ICE, particularly at a time when it drives so much fear and confusion within our communities.
Democrats prevailed in 3 state Supreme Court contests in the swing state of Pennsylvania. They said yes to redrawing the congressional map in California to counteract Texas and other red states doing the same at President Trump's bidding. In New York City, Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist who campaigned on affordability issues, was elected mayor. His progressive policies have made him a target of Republican campaign committees, which have begun launching new attack ads against a number of vulnerable congressional Democrats. In Maine, voters rejected a GOP-backed measure that would have required people to show their identifications at the polls. Residents there also approved a red flag rule to make it easier to keep potentially dangerous people from accessing guns. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A federal judge has ruled that the Trump administration can reconsider the permit issued to South Coast Wind in the final days of Joe Biden's presidency. Nantucket Current reports the offshore wind farm planned for the waters southwest of Nantucket was already being challenged by the town of Nantucket in federal court through an appeal filed last March. And then last month, the Department of Justice asked to pause that appeal while the feds reconsider the permit that was issued by President Biden's administration in December of 2024. However, yesterday, a Washington, D.C. judge ruled that the Trump administration can now legally reconsider the permit, sending the offshore wind project back to the Department of Interior's Bureau of Ocean Energy Management for yet another review. Two newcomers won seats on New Bedford City Council in yesterday's election. James Roy won an at-large council seat, and Scott Pemberton unseated incumbent Maria Gista by 17 votes in Ward 2. Meanwhile, over in Fall River, Mayor Paul Coogan won a narrow re-election win over challenger Gabriel Boomer Amaral. Early results show Coogan with nearly 51% of the vote to nearly 49% for Amaral. That's a margin of 225 votes. Celtics host the Wizards at the Garden tonight, and the forecast overcast and upper 50s today, cloudy, windy, low 40s overnight, partly cloudy, windy tomorrow, high about 50 degrees, and mostly cloudy, mid-50s on Friday. 56 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. He's Jim Brady. I'm Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be with us November 18th from noon to 1 here at the library. And Yo-Yo Ma will perform here at the Boston Public Library on November 19th. You don't need any tickets. You can just come watch him for free. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. We're joined now by CNN's chief national correspondent, John King, who's been covering the New York City mayor's race, talking to voters out of the election, and did his usual brilliant job at the Magic Wall, guiding Marjorie, me, and millions of others through an incredible election night. John, it's great to see you. Can't believe you're awake. Hi.
Happy Wednesday. Usually it's a Tuesday. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah.
Day after, the morning after.
The morning after. But, you know, we did have results fairly early last night, much earlier than a lot of people expected. So almost, I guess, 12 hours later or something? What is the hot analysis of what happened last night?
I think the point about how quickly we were able to call just about everything is the story, which means the margins were big. The margins were big. The Democrats have the passion of the moment. We'll see if it holds up a year from now. But think about this. 1 year ago today, Donald Trump won the White House back. Donald Trump won the White House back 1 year ago today. So fast forward, and then the voters last night seemed to be saying, well, wait a minute. And the Democrats had, double-digit win in New Jersey, double-digit win in Virginia. The New York City mayor story, which will be a global story. We can talk more about that. The challenge for Mamdani now is going to be governing. And can he get the governor and the legislature to go along with what he needs to finance his bold initiatives, whether you like them or don't like them? That'll be his challenge governing. But the Democrats are quite happy today. Donald Trump has an approval rating at or below 40%. Democrats just showed yesterday their voters, even though the Democratic Party still has a lot of internal issues to work out, and Mamdani versus, Abigail Spanberger or Mikey Sherrill, right there you see two centrists and a Democratic socialist. Democratic Party has a lot to talk through as we go into 2026 and then on to 2028. But what we learned last night is this part is still true. Democrats will set aside their differences to vote against Donald Trump and to come out against his Republican Party and the way he's doing things. So Democrats should be very happy today. That doesn't mean all their problems are solved. But this was a huge day for Democrats, and Republicans are back on their heels, and a lot of questions about that. I'll stop talking and let you ask the follow-up questions. But, there are some Republicans whispering, what do we do? Is it time to break from Trump? He still has such control over the party. I wouldn't look for that en masse, but I'd start watching for little pieces of it.
But not control enough that his desired end of the filibuster, which would allow Republicans alone in the Senate to end the shutdown. Apparently, when I read quotes from Republican senators, very conservative ones, who never take on Trump, and they don't do it anonymously, they do it with their names attached, it's amazing to me that enough of them have chosen to make a stand on something that matters so much to the boss, and he is their boss, essentially. Are you surprised?
A little bit, and let's see how long it lasts. Some Republican senators, some of the newer ones who maybe owe their current status more to Trump, or at least have risen in the Trumpy Republican Party, are saying, well, the president made a powerful case. But the more institutional senators who've been around a while saying, wait a minute, what about when we're in the minority if that happens, right? Do we want to take away this piece of, this piece of the Senate that is very important to the institution itself? And I know there's a big debate about the filibuster. I'm not here to defend it or whatever, but in the moment, Trump says get rid of it. John Thune also just came out, the Senate Republican leader, just came out of the White House meeting and said he disagrees with Trump, that last night was about people being mad at the Republicans for the shutdown. Now, he didn't answer what it is about, but you hit a key point, Jim, is that this is trademark Donald Trump. Last night was about him. Look at the exit polls. Last night was about him and Democratic reaction to him. Even a lot of voters who voted for Trump said, I thought you promised us, Donald Trump, we give you back the White House, prices would come down. You actually said it would be easy and you'd get it done. Even people who support closing the border and a tougher immigration policy, look at the exit polls, especially among Latino voters, think it's going too far. The tone is too harsh. And so, Trump has sort of overstepped his mandate, I think, is the thing you can take away from last night's election. But he is blaming anybody but himself. And the White House is trying to spin this as the Republican candidates weren't MAGA enough. Well, I can tell you, mostly in private, but also some in public, a lot of Republicans are saying, no, that's not what happened.
By the way, he didn't say it was rigged, which was interesting to me. John, just as an aside, and we say this behind your back, not just when you're here, journalist on cable television than you, but I have to say, you just used the term that I love. You're talking to Jake Tapper fairly early last night. I think you're talking about Chitterelli, is that how you pronounce the Republican who lost? Right. And I think you said he's a little more Trumpy this time than he was before, which coming out of you, I know what you meant by the thing, but I sort of love the use of the term. In any case, Bannon, who in many days, at least in my opinion, is the brains of the administration, Steve Bannon said flashing red lights from what happened, not just in general, but from my understanding, specifically talking about Mamdani. What is he saying?
I'm not sure what he means about Mamdani, except if you want to look, we can have a debate. Are Democrats running in Colorado or running in Nebraska or running in Georgia going to say, let's have free buses and government run grocery stores? The answer to that is no. I think Democrats are overcomplicating the Mamdani question, actually, in the sense that his focus on affordability, and so did Mikey Sherrill and so did Abigail Spanberger. Exactly. The focus on affordability, but not just the focus on it, Jim, but not talking about income inequality or that it's just saying we want to lower your prices. Just cut the fancy language, right? And get to the point about your groceries cost too much, your energy bill is too high. What can government do to help you there? Mamdani, there's a lot to learn from him. He's very different from Trump, and yet, like Trump, he used social media to really stay in touch and to communicate and to motivate his supporters. There's something to be learned from there. His focus on issues. Again, can he get the governor to raise taxes, get the New York Assembly to raise taxes heading into their next election cycle because he needs that money to pay for all the things he promised? There's a huge governing challenge there. But I think the power of his campaign, and we always talk about how Trump repopulated the Republican Party. Zohran Mamdani, I'm not even sure how to answer this question. He got 50%. Is that huge, or should he have gotten more in an overwhelmingly blue city? I can't answer that. But you have a historic mayor who put together a fantastic multiracial, multi-generational coalition in New York. So there's a lot to look at, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, independent, a socialist, wherever you're, of the structure of how he did it, and learn from the campaign. There's going to be a huge debate in the Democratic Party, and the Republicans are going to try to say all Democrats are socialists. So this is going to be with us for a while. But I do think there are a lot of valuable lessons to learn from how he did it.
Yeah, well, he had the scavenger hunts and the soccer games and all that kind of stuff. But when you did your, your all around, your in-person,
all over the map,
reporting, I mean, you talked to people in Staten Island, and they weren't happy with him. They're usually much more conservative.
And they didn't have a Republican candidate who could win. Look, Republicans are outnumbered 5 or 6 to 1 in New York City. Curtis Sliwa is a New Yorker, full bloodstream, but is he a mayor? I think people said the answer to that question was no. And then Trump, in the end, again, this is another question. He's the leader of the Republican Party, and he told people to vote for Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah.
And so
that helped.
If you did not want to vote for Mamdani for whatever reason, you might think he's too young, you might think he doesn't have the experience, you might not like democratic socialism, you might not agree with some of his policies, for whatever reason, one of the things that came up quite clearly as I went through all 5 boroughs is people did not like the alternatives.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't feel great about their choices there. So that's certainly a part of it. But on Staten Island in particular, Trump won Staten Island all 3 times, the only borough he won. You're asking people who never voted for Mario Cuomo, never voted for Andrew Cuomo, to vote for a Cuomo. You're asking lifelong Republicans to vote for a Democrat, and that was a pretty bitter pill to swallow.
The Jewish vote also was very split toward Cuomo and away from Mamdani, because there's been a lot of questions about some things he has said that many in the Jewish community do not like.
He has a lot to prove to a lot of his constituencies, and he's to his credit, I would say that after the primary, he knew he had a problem with Jewish voters. He spent a lot of time in the Jewish community. He knew he had a problem with the police department. He spent a lot of time with the police. He knew he had a problem in the black community. He spent a lot of time there. So as a politician, I always say, did they learn the lessons, right? How are they growing? He did it in the campaign. He did try at least to reach out to the constituencies who were raising pretty sharp questions about him. Now the challenge is going to be pulling that together as he moves into becoming the next mayor of a giant city with a lot of issues.
John King, I read somewhere, I think it was in Politico or somewhere, I mean, it's not that original a thought, but it's the first place I read it this morning, that this makes it much more difficult. The results last night makes it much more difficult for the Democrats to do anything but honor their commitment to not vote to open the government until they get what they want on health care. And I am of the belief, and I'm curious to know if you are, that one of the things that helped the Democrats across the board was they finally grew a spine in terms of this shutdown thing. So do you agree with that? And do you agree that it makes it tougher for them to, Sheldon Whitehouse was here the other day, who surely is a tough Democrat. And I was really surprised. He said to us, if he had a commitment from the Republicans that immediately after the Democrats voted to open the government, that they would vote for a deal that had been prearranged. He'd vote to open it. We broached it with Senator Markey yesterday. He said, are you kidding me? Trust the Republicans? Not at all. So what about the shutdown impacts in your estimation there, John?
I think Senator Markey might be facing a primary challenge, right?
Yeah, I believe he is, yes.
Is my memory correct here?
Yes, that is correct.
And so, again, you got to look at each individual lawmaker as we go through. But I think you raise a key question about this. On the one hand, you could say, Democrats could say, we just proved our point. We fought. We made our base happy. But we're also the party that believes in government. Let's try to open the government if we can get at least a temporary extension of the Obamacare subsidies, for example. You give us a package that lets us say to our voters, we did it, and then we'll come back and negotiate a long-term plan. You could argue that on the one hand, but I think you make a key point. In the base of the party is going to say, no, we just kicked their butts yesterday. Yeah. Raise the price. Raise the price of ending the shutdown. Ask for more. And I think those tensions will continue. And so how does that get broken? I think part of that depends on battleground district Republicans, right, who are thinking this morning, the president's under 40. We just got swamped in the suburbs. The voters of color that we thought were coming our way, at least temporarily, went back the other way. That this is a bad dynamic for us. And as people, the SNAP benefits, talking to Democrats in New Jersey and a little bit in New York City, but more in New Jersey, they say the SNAP thing really helped them with the Latino community in New Jersey. So I think there's going to be the next today, tomorrow, maybe into the weekend, if the shutdown isn't solved by then, a lot of...
But it's almost to me like in Dr. Zhivago. Remember Dr. Zhivago, that movie? All the really rich people with the tuxedos and the ball gowns and the jewels dining, while you had the Bolsheviks down ready to revolt in the street without food, without clothing, and everything else. There is a huge income inequality thing, and I think a lot of people, Bernie Sanders, Mamdani, AOC, I don't think a lot of people really bought it, but those symbols seem to just shove it right in your face.
He is often his own worst enemy. We've had this conversation many times. And again, that he's saying this today, that it's got nothing to do with him. It's all about other people's problems, is a trademark of Donald Trump. And I'm not saying that the income inequality is not a huge issue. I think that speaking a language that's more relevant to blue collar people,
right,
to people who are living paycheck to paycheck, by talking about affordability and energy bills as opposed to us versus them. There's a lot of power in that. To the tax question, Bill Clinton won a presidential election by saying he was going to raise taxes on the rich. And a lot of people thought that was nuts, right? You're going to campaign for president after Walter Mondale and Michael Dukakis got blown out. You're going to campaign for president saying, I'm going to raise your taxes. But he was able to communicate on the rich, and we're going to cut taxes on the middle class. The challenge is, are you a trustworthy messenger? Do you have a clear, consistent message? And do people buy that you mean it? And so I'm not saying it can't be done. The question, but Mamdani now, who a lot of Democrats are a little nervous about, even though they see the skill set, they're a little nervous about the label. Can he convince a governor and assembly members from upstate New York, much more conservative areas, or more purple areas anyway? Can he convince them to help him? Because he will be attached to it. Can you brand it right and sell it right? I think that's a giant challenge for the Democrats going forward, because their base says, we just won these elections. Let's do something.
Yeah,
John, everybody, I'm sure, you included, there's an image from an election night that you take away that sums up a lot of what it is. You know what it was for me? I'm listening to the Mamdani victory speech, and I wish I should have asked our colleagues to get it for us. But he says, and place is going wild, I'm a democratic socialist, and the problem with me is I won't apologize for it, and the place goes nuts. So that's one guy. On the other end of the spectrum is Chuck Schumer, who at least changes glasses so they're not on the end of the nose, who didn't have the courage to endorse the Democratic nominee for mayor in the city in which he lives. After the fact, congratulates Mamdani for his great victory and says we've worked together on some things. In the past, it was so pathetic. It was so really this old, and by the way, Spanberger and Cheryl are not ancient. They are relatively young women in Virginia and New Jersey. There's a lot of generational pressure within the party, yes?
Yes, and I think that gets magnified even. It was there anyway before the vote yesterday. I think it does get magnified now. The generational part, and also the just please speak your mind plainly.
Exactly.
I don't think Chuck Schumer has said yet who he voted for.
I'm so glad you added that. He hasn't said who he voted for.
He's the Democratic leader of the United States Senate, exactly, and he's from New York City. And they just had a historic mayoral election. I just don't. I don't think in any age you should. Leadership is about leading, right? Leadership is about saying, this is what I believe, this is what I did, this is what I did. I don't believe in any age it's acceptable, but with all the generational pressure on him to begin with, I don't think he's handled this well. Let me put it that way.
Well, I think that's one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we learned from yesterday. There was a pretty significant young vote. We always talk about how young people don't vote. They were voting yesterday. And I think here in Massachusetts, all I hear about from my kids and their friends is how they can't afford anything. And this is an expensive place to live, Massachusetts, but we're not unique. This is all across the country. So I don't know. I guess I'm saying that I said this earlier, but I'll repeat it. We have not taken care of the poor in the United States for a long time, but now we're not taking care of the middle class either. And when you're making $100,000 and you still can't afford to buy a house, that's a pretty pathetic situation. So that's what part of it. What I think is going on here is that it's almost impossible for young people to get ahead unless they go to work for Goldman Sachs or something like that.
And so so let's say you're running for office in Massachusetts or Colorado or Nebraska or anywhere else, and you're a Democrat, and you don't want to do what the specifics of what Mamdani said. You do want to study how he managed to break through with people, and I'm on your side when it comes to this affordability thing. I'm going to do everything I can. And I'm going to go outside the box, and I'm going to try new things. If you can't sell, there's a lot of places you can't sell. The government's going to do this for you. But you better come up with a plan. You better come up with specifics, because, again, you can agree with him or disagree with him, but he was very clear about what he thought he should do. And in that speech last night, he did not back down at all. He was very defiant about, I'm going to do these things. Can he do them? Giant question. A year from now, we'll be having this conversation. Has he delivered? Who's in the way? Whose fault is it? But the idea that, be bold, be direct, and be relevant. That's what I mean about talk to people in a language that they understand. But the affordability thing, Washington, D.C. is pretty affluent, right? New York City, the Manhattan part of it, pretty affluent. You go out into the Bronx, where the median income is half of what it is in Manhattan, or you go out into the country, as I've been doing the last 2 years, this is the defining issue. And it's not just working people. It's not just what we would think of as the working poor or the just paycheck to paycheck crowd.
No, it's the middle class.
A lot of people middle class who, because mortgage rates are so high, can't sell their house to buy a bigger one, can't find affordable daycare, aren't sure what to tell their kids to teach or learn in college. This is a huge issue. It has different wrinkles in different places, but the affordability and where are we going in the globalization economy, technology economy, AI economy, huge.
So who is it? Barney Frank said the good news is you won, the bad news is you have to serve. I mean, how'd you like to be mayor of New York City? Oh my God.
Well, I think what's disgraceful, and I think it's disgraceful here in Boston, is this legislature controlling so much of what Mayor Wu is stymied constantly by the do-nothing Massachusetts legislature. I know, and Mondami's got the same problem in New York, and I would imagine there's much resentment toward him from a lot of the legislators in New York as well.
Your state.
He's going to push them to make tough choices.
Yeah.
And so why are we opposed to this? Why, if you don't agree with what he wants, then stand up and make your case, make your argument. Mr. Mayor, can we try it this way? I think we should do it this way. We've lost this. We've stopped debating in public, whether it's on the floor of the legislature or in town halls or in town meetings. We've just stopped debating things in public. Because it gets captured on social media, it becomes a big deal. We have to find a way to get back to, okay, I agree with you on affordability. I disagree with grocery stores, or I disagree with buses, whatever it is. Here's my idea, and talk it out.
So, John,
have a vote. See who wins.
Before you go, obviously, the most important part of last night, at least to me, and I assume most people, except the people fortunate enough to win, is what does this mean for November of 2026? And as great as it was for the Democrats in Georgia with the Public Service Commission, the justices in Pennsylvania, the California balloting, New Jersey, New York.
Oh, yeah, we forgot to ask about Gavin Newsom.
What do you think is really hard to predict? Is there a broader message that has potential to spill over into the midterm vote, which is hugely consequential, or no?
Well, if the cost of living goes down and inflation goes down and mortgage rates go down a year from now, then maybe the table will change. But the same issues that where people said, sorry, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, no, we're going back to Donald Trump, exist today. And Donald Trump said it would be easy and he would fix them. And he has not. Inflation is up from a year ago. People think the country's on the wrong track. In our new polling, 69% of Republicans, only 69% of Republicans said the country is heading in the right direction. That means 30% of the president's own party think we're going in the wrong direction. So Hakeem Jeffries woke up this morning thinking he's going to be speaker. That doesn't mean it lasts a whole year. But the American people are as mad or madder or less happy, less satisfied with the direction of the country and their government than they were when they kicked the Democrats out of the White House. The Republicans run everything in Washington right now. Guess what? I always say politics is piñata. They are the piñata. Republicans are the piñata, and people are mad. Voting is a stick. You pull that curtain behind you and you use the stick. They used it on Donald Trump and the Republicans last night.
Jim, you forgot to ask John about Brady cloning his dog.
Yeah, what did you think about that, John? I mean,
Tom Brady cloning his dog.
I mean, that's really that is a bridge too far, or a dog too far, don't you think?
Yeah. I can't.
I think he's
John,
practicing for maybe cloning himself when the time comes. That's my
Ted
theory.
Williams and that head on the tuna can. Hey, John, in all seriousness, I know I speak for Marjorie. You were once again such a great guide on such an important night, and we appreciate you here, and I know all of America appreciates you there.
That was my clone. That was my clone. It wasn't.
John, we'll see you next week. Take care of yourself.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking with John King, Chief National Correspondent at CNN and brilliant analyst. Coming up after this quick break, we're going to open the lines, doing something a little lighter that's not about the elections. Exclamation points. What do you think? Why is it that women put an exclamation point, in their text at a 3-to-1 ratio to men? Is there something significant about this? How do you feel about the exclamation points? Do you want to assure people that you like them, that you love them, that you're excited? Did you ever use triple exclamation points? Exclamation points and you is next, 877-301-8970. Houston Browdy, I'm Marjorie Egan. This is BPR and 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, some Massachusetts cities are seeing turnovers in leadership after yesterday's election. We'll learn about the new mayors-elect of Everett and Brockton, and an update on when SNAP recipients can expect to see at least some of their benefits. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com. And Burton's Grill and Bar, serving weekend brunch with dishes like cast iron French toast, chicken and waffles, and short rib hash. A gluten-free menu is available with 8 locations in Greater Boston. Burton'sGrill.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, streaming at YouTube. Thank you all at, youtube.com/GBH News. Ask the Mayor is the 18th. You join us every day. Anyway, the rest of the show belongs to you and the grammar obsessed among us. That would be Marjorie, and I love her for it. What's the deal with exclamation points?
Exactly.
Women, this is research that is going to come out in November, I believe, in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, which Marjorie subscribes to. Women tend to use them in emails at rates far higher than men, thinking it softens their tone and makes them more approachable in the workplace, the research says. And recent research apparently backs that up. It warms the tone of a digital message as opposed to the very austere and imposing period mark at the end of a sentence. In one study, when a work email was written with exclamations, more than half of the people assumed the writer to be a woman. And it has a negative impact on how intelligent and powerful people are perceived regardless of gender. I have to say, I have no idea what I just read. So forget all that. The only thing I can tell you with clarity is this research in this journal says that women use exclamation points 3 times more than men. So love them or hate them, we want to know about your digital communication style. Are you an exclamation point person or are you not? And why? 877-301-8970. Now, I'm embarrassed to admit, because I think it's a cheap way to express yourself, I use them 1,000,000 times more than you do. I overuse them. I sometimes use them twice in a text, which is really childish kind of thing. And you use them almost never, I've noticed. Is that true?
Well, I don't use them. I didn't notice that you use them that much. You are a man, I think, Jim.
I am a man.
Yeah.
Some people think that anyway. Yes, that is true.
I didn't notice that.
And you are a woman, by the way.
Well, I use them judiciously because I feel like you're just trying to talk about your excitement, or like if you send somebody a text about their birthday or congratulating them, I think one exclamation point is sufficient. You don't want to go overboard with the exclamation points because then they lose their power, But I think the story says that the reason women do it more is because they want people to like them. They feel like if they don't do enough exclamation points, they're being cold and they're
not enthusiastic enough.
They're not enthusiastic enough. Yeah,
ridiculous.
Like if you're saying happy anniversary and you don't do 3 exclamation points after the anniversary, then you're not really that happy about the anniversary. You're just faking it. So it's supposed to indicate your level of enthusiasm about the message. That's the thing.
Okay, so let me read you a few texts, not from listeners yet, but from our colleagues. Here's Jamie, who I believe works on the show. Marjorie, you didn't notice because in Jim's emails, texts that he uses them a lot, you didn't notice, Marjorie, because you're like me. You just ignore Jim's texts. Thank you.
Well, that could be part of it.
Thank you. Listen to Zoe. It took me 10 years in the working world to be emboldened enough to use a period in work emails. I wish I was kidding.
Yeah,
There you go.
I think Zoe makes a great point. I think that's true. You feel as though people will dislike you or think you're not. Now, apparently, there's a lot of sexism involved, that people think that when women use too many texts, they're eroding their own authority.
Too many exclamation marks.
I mean, too many exclamation points.
Yeah.
They're eroding their own authority, and that they are less skilled at analytical thinking. That is
Whatever that means.
well, it means that they're not as smart as men, basically.
You know, let me tell you the other thing I do, which is I also haven't noticed, because you didn't notice first thing.
Yeah.
When I feel, this is totally true, it's pathetic. When I feel self-conscious about using an exclamation mark, it usually comes when I, without thinking, don't use just one exclamation mark. I do 2 or 3. And when I realize, this is totally true before I send it, how childish and pointless that is, I remove 2 of the exclamation marks and put a question mark. So I have an exclamation mark and a question mark. And if you were to say to me, which I hope you don't, what are you trying to say? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Exclamation and question mark.
Yeah, exclamation point, excitement and enthusiasm.
Question mark is what?
And question mark, I guess, means you don't know who you are or why
I'm
you're there.
here. Let me just say, by the way, for those who are feeling left out, we will be doing a whole segment on the ampersand next week. But today is just, I love saying ampersand and I love writing ampersand.
Here's a text. I use them sparingly so they mean something. If everything gets one, they have no more value,
exactly
followed
right.
by 10 exclamation points.
Well, you know what that's like? I mean, the equivalent of an exclamation point is when Trump, in his Truth Social post, does everything in capital letters.
Yeah.
You know, if you capitalize one word, maybe you make a point, but not when you capitalize 30 words in one posting.
Here's Mark from Brookline. My mother was an English teacher and tutor for 25 years. My sister is a copy editor at a big Boston publisher. They say that each person is allowed to use 3 exclamation points exactly in their entire life. So
Do you
there
remember
you go.
one of the best calls we've gotten in recent times? Then we'll get to your calls.
Read Mark from Cambridge.
Not yet. We had
I don't know if we can say that on the
woman.
air.
We had a woman. Well, definitely say on the air. Do you remember the woman? I think we were talking about the semicolon like 3 months ago. And a woman called in. I think she said she was an editor, and her first words were,
Yep.
"I'm coming in hot."
Coming in hot.
And a lot of people feel the same way about exclamation marks. So let's talk. What are you going to read?
More than one exclamation point is redundant. What does more than one mean? Asks Sheila in North Attleboro.
What's the one you didn't want to read?
Well, okay, I'll go ahead and say
let's
it.
say it.
Mark in Cambridge says, why do women use so many more exclamation points? Penis envy?
Oh, it's probably better you didn't read it.
Too late now.
It's too late. Leslie and Pepperell, you're first on BPR. Hi, welcome.
Hi there, how you doing?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Good. So I'm, as you can hear from my accent, I'm British.
Yes.
And I was taught to use my grammar very correctly. So when I want to make a real point about something, I use an exclamation point. But when I really want to make a point, I use 3 exclamation points.
Wow.
Very bold, Leslie.
Wait, that's it?
Very bold.
That's me. I'm British. I'm very bold.
Well, Leslie, I'm not British, you may have noticed, and I do the exact same thing. When I really want to make a point, I do a few, or maybe throw a question mark in. Leslie, thanks for your call.
It's funny you should mention being British, because when Queen Elizabeth II died in 2022, the Principal Proclamation didn't read, "The Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege Lord Charles III, by the grace of God." No exclamation points anywhere there in that whole dissertation. So their argument is that the royal family takes the use of, very sparingly. Very sparingly.
Like that Brit that just called. So anonymous texter says multiple exclamation points are the text equivalent of emojis. I totally agree with that, and I hate emojis. As you know, Michelle from Cranston, Rhode Island. I'm thinking women use exclamation points in their emails more frequently than men because they're used to not being listened to in the day-to-day work experience. Men don't have that problem. I think there's some merit there.
Well, here's another anonymous texter. Add to the list of things that women are damned if you do and damned if you don't. Use them and you're too silly. Don't use them and you're seen as a word that starts with B and rhymes with which. It's almost as if it is not about the punctuation.
Okay, so here's a little Seinfeld. What a shock. Yep. Season 5, Elaine's boyfriend writes down her voice messages, including one from a friend announcing that she had a baby. Elaine is ticked off that he didn't use an exclamation point when writing down the news. This is good.
You don't think that someone having a baby warrants an exclamation point?
Hey, look, I just jotted down the message. I didn't know that I was required to capture the mood of each caller.
I just thought that you'd be a little more excited about a friend of mine having a baby.
Okay, I'm excited. I just don't happen to like exclamation points.
Well, you know, Jake, you should learn to use them. Like the way I'm talking right now, I would put exclamation points at the ends of all of these sentences. On this one and on that one.
That is a fabulous bit. That is really great.
God, that was such a great show. Harrison from Quincy, thank you for calling.
Hi, Harrison.
Hi. I have a pair of opinions on this.
Please.
One is that I can hear myself echoing. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's our fault. We can't fix it, but we hear you perfectly. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay. I have almost never used exclamation points in work emails except for when I actually need someone's attention. And then it seems to work like a charm. And then also, I use exclamation points all the time with my friends. So maybe it's just a cultural divide. One other thing I want to touch on, too, is that I haven't heard you guys cover the election in Quincy at all. That 7 out of the 9 incumbents got kicked out of office.
Well, the reason we didn't mention it, I didn't know it.
Wow.
From the city council?
From the city council, yeah.
Was that a reaction against the mayor who people aren't happy with, or what was that a function of, Harrison?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was a reaction to how the mayor got the massive raise, and that also the city council has been a bunch of yes men.
Wow.
And so it's been a massive surprise for a lot of people that we didn't realize how well people would show up for making a change. But I think it's a big sign for things to come for Quincy.
Huge. I'm really glad you called.
That's a great deal, because the whole thing with the statues was ridiculous, and the whole huge raise was ridiculous. I think he spent, Harrison, $800,000 on these 2 statues that nobody even wanted.
And he wanted what did he want? Like a 40+% raise, $100 and some $1,000, and then reduced it, and it was still a huge raise. Harrison, thank you. Here's a BUR headline. Opponents of Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch are celebrating Tuesday's city council election results with 6 candidates critical of Koch's policies, winning seats on the 9-member body. That is really
they
something.
They said the Patriot Ledger's reporting the reform candidates prevailed. They now have a majority in the city council.
Well, speaking of local elections, a guy who has had corruption charges against him, just charges, Di Maria, who's been mayor of Everett for about 100 years, was also defeated by a challenger.
Yeah, a lot going on in Massachusetts. That was heartening, I think.
New mayor in Somerville too, which I'm a half mile away from, but a seat where the mayor was defeated in the preliminary.
The headline on Boston.com says, "Embattled Everett mayor." You know, when you're embattled as a politician, your days are numbered. Bridget in Somerville, thank you for calling.
Hello, Bridget.
Hi. My experience with exclamation points was years ago, colleagues told me my emails are too brusque. So since then, I instituted a policy of 1 exclamation point per email. Usually the first sentence, "Hope you're doing well!" Exclamation point. Blah, blah, blah.
Is that true, Bridget, or is that true?
It is true. It's true. I give you sources to check with.
That is a brilliant phone
You know what's
call.
interesting, Bridget? Before we all texted like maniacs, and we used to just write each other
Thank you,
notes,
Bridget.
we didn't have this exclamation point problem.
We didn't?
No, I don't think so. No. When you think about it, if you wrote a note to somebody, how many times you used an exclamation point? Exclamation point. I'm having difficulty saying the word. You just didn't do it.
So if you wrote a 700-word column for the Globe or the Herald, which you both worked at, Herald more than the Globe, would you ever use an exclamation point?
I believe I have used exclamation points at various junctures, but I can't
rarely
really remember. Well, it's supposed to make it a deal.
But
right?
if your words don't make the point that it's a big deal, you sort of failed, didn't you? Especially if you have a few hundred words to make your point.
It's a crutch, you know.
I think it is a crutch.
It's a crutch. You can put the exclamation point there. I'm not going to be able to say this word for the rest of the segment, Jim. You're going to have to take over.
You know what I thought, I loved your columns. I thought what was missing your columns is you should have had wow more. And Like at the end of a sentence, instead of an exclamation point, just a capital W-O-W.
Yeah.
To sort of bring people's attention.
Yeah, you always had to watch
Focus.
out for too many parenthetical phrases and too many dashes. That was always bad, too. Karen and Braintree, thank you for calling.
Hey, guys. How are you today?
We're good, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for what you do. You are so comforting for so many of us.
That is really kind of you.
Challenging times.
Thank
I
you,
know,
Karen.
a little less challenging today, though.
Go ahead.
Yes, today is a great day.
Yeah.
Today is a great day. So I'm so excited to follow up on Bridget because I wanted to ask how you guys feel when you get an email and it says, "Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie." Do you feel better when there's an exclamation point next to your name?
No.
Or do you not notice?
I do notice, actually. And I have to say, when I see it, I sort of think it's ridiculous. Is that a good answer or is that not, Karen?
Well, I am an independent contractor, and I have to email people asking them to do things, and they don't see me very often. So when I approach them via email, I want to come off on a friendly note to start.
Mm-hmm.
And so I use an exclamation point.
Yeah. I think
I started to question it.
Karen, do me
They
a
are
favor.
the great questions in life.
Hey, Karen.
Exclaim, not to exclaim.
I have a great idea. If you send an email to BPR, is it BPR@WGBH.org?
Yes.
Send an email and start it with "Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie," with exclamation marks. We'll read it, and tomorrow we'll give you on the air our reaction. Is that a deal?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Do it.
I am very curious to hear.
Jamie will check for it. Thanks. Now, by the way, here is who I am. Let me just read
The anonymous
this.
texter?
Yeah, you
This
read
top
it.
one?
Yeah, read it.
I have become addicted to the ellipse. ...
Who's addicted to the ellipse?
You. I use it all over the place and have no idea why. ... Like a little break I just needed. ...
All my texts, all my emails, I don't write letters anymore. Whatever I write are all the only punctuation in 99% of them. You can say this is accurate, or ellipses is how I separate thoughts.
Is it S at the end? You're the expert on S's at the end.
Well, it's got to be ellipses. I mean, it's a weird sounding word, but doesn't it have to be?
I
An
know,
ellipse is
I don't
one.
know. I'm
By the way, it's
flummoxed.
3 dots for those who don't know.
3 dots.
It's 3 dots, and I'm sure I misuse it, but it serves my purpose. You don't have to worry about punctuation. But it must drive you nuts since you're a grammar person.
Now, well,
She didn't notice that either.
The dots. You can't overuse these kinds of things.
Look at this. See that picture?
Jeb Bush.
Jeb Bush, when he ran for president, that was successful.
Didn't do
in
him much good.
2016,
Yeah.
Jeb exclamation mark was his presidential logo.
I'll never forget. Remember, we were covering that the primary up there in
Sure.
New Hampshire. We were at what was the hotel, the Ramada or whatever it was.
Whatever the main one is in
I
downtown
forget.
Manchester.
But
yeah.
I remember being there, and you saw.
I know this.
Really neat. You saw the
This is painful.
primary people, and I saw Jeb Bush standing all by himself.
In the lobby.
Nobody even coming up to
I know,
him,
it's
nobody
horrible.
talking to him, and it was just a indication of how things were going to go, which was not well for Jeb Bush. Richard in Cambridge. Hi, Richard.
Hi.
Hi.
So one of your earlier callers, or the text you read, covered what I was going to say, that my wife and I have a theory. You only get so many exclamation points in your life. Don't
That's
waste
right.
them.
How many do you get?
And the other thing I find is if I'm saying thanks to someone in an email or a text message, I feel like it's not sincere or enthusiastic enough. Maybe it sounds sarcastic with no exclamation point.
Exactly.
You say, "Oh, thanks."
Yeah.
But if you use the exclamation point, maybe it drives it home.
That's a
I
pretty
don't know.
good point. So how many exclamation points are you entitled to in a lifetime, Richard?
Well, we trade them with our friends. So,
Trade them.
some folks don't use as many. If we need extras, we can swap them
That is
for
great.
bagels.
For bagels.
That is really,
And
that
one,
is.
one last
yeah,
thing.
go ahead, please.
One last thing, Jim, in our hometown, I was using a lot of exclamation points yesterday when all of the Cambridge bike supporters did really well in the city council election.
I didn't know that. I wasn't aware. I voted, but I didn't know what the outcome. Richard, when you said our hometown, I didn't think you meant Cambridge, where apparently we both live. I thought you meant Philadelphia. You have a Philadelphia accent. Are you from Philadelphia?
Not even close. Well, I guess close.
Where?
New York to South Carolina to Massachusetts. So
well, you have to drive through
it
Philadelphia.
Gets mixed up.
Hey, Richard, that was great. How do you like trading lifetime exclamation
That's what
points?
somebody said before. You have a
Trading
limit.
them?
They didn't say trading. They said a limit of 3 to your entire life.
Do you know why this is relevant to this, even though it won't sound the way at first? Do you know why Donald Trump never exercises?
Why?
This is true. He has said this repeatedly. He believes his body is like a battery, that you have a limit. I'm serious. You have a limited amount of energy in your lifetime.
That's
and
right.
if you expend it on exercising, that you will use it up and will, I assume, disappear earlier.
Picked the wrong week. Quit sniffing glue.
Okay, we have an answer on ellipsis. ELLIPSIS. That is the singular of ellipsis.
Wait, say it again.
ELLIPSIS.
I had no idea.
That is.
So what's the plural?
I don't know. Ellipsis plural.
Can somebody look that
I'm
up?
gonna look that up now.
Okay.
Okay.
Aubrey in, where are you? Medfield. Hi, Aubrey. Hi.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
A lot of your prior callers addressed some of this. It's not that women want to be liked, and that's why they use, I hear an echo, and that's why they're using exclamation points. It's that they want to express a tone. They want the receiver of the email to know, I'm happy about this. And so I had always done this. Once emails and text started, I'd always use exclamation points. And then I realized not everyone's using them, and I thought they were either being critical or they were annoyed, and it's usually customers. They weren't happy with, estimate. And I spoke with my husband about it. He said, nobody uses exclamation points. I said, hon, women use them. I know you're getting emails with exclamation points. So what ended up happening is I stopped using them. Then it occurred to me, all my female customers are going to think I'm mad. So now I assess every email. I look for exclamation points. If there's one, I might use one or two. If there's a ton of them, I exclamation point all over the place. And my husband is just excessively using exclamation points. I thought of that when Jim said that. He uses them in every email. And I'm like, hon, you got to cut back. I mean, this is the male people that you are emailing are going to think that there's something wrong with you. The male customers, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Are going to think something's wrong with you.
That was another great call. Aubrey, thank you. One of our colleagues says the plural of ellipsis, S-I-S, singular, is ellipses, S-E-E-S.
And Derek makes
So I've been spelling it wrong, by the way.
Derek makes the point that exclamation points are equally as aggressive as all caps.
Derek is our new colleague, by the way.
He's our new colleague, that's right. He's our new security guard.
Okay, so
he's over there.
877, I didn't want to put him on the spot, but so here's a good one from TJ texting. It starts with 10 exclamation marks.
Yep.
And TJ says, this is on a flip phone. That took me 20 minutes. You have to earn it if I text it to you. Remember the old phones, how you had it like 3 times if you want to get to the last letter and the whatever. Let's go to Mike in Plymouth. We're talking exclamation points, marks, whatever they're called. Hello there.
Hello there, Jim and Marjorie.
Hi.
So here's what I think, and I can only speak personal experience. I think they're contagious. So
I do too.
If you're communicating with someone over the course of days or a week or so, you're going to start to do it unconsciously. And I caught myself doing this about 3 months ago. The other thing is I think it's generational. I think they've increased dramatically. I've noticed this in business maybe over the last 10 to 15 years that more and more people are using it.
Whoops.
What do you think of that, Jim?
That more are using it?
More are using it, yes.
I hadn't thought about it, but I think the answer is yes. But why do you, if the answer is yes, which you and I both think, why do you think that is?
I've just noticed it in business since the start of email. I can remember emailing 25 years ago and not being faced with a dozen exclamation points in an email.
Yeah.
Where now they're everywhere.
Yeah, they are everywhere. I don't know why. I think it's cheap to overuse them, even though I overuse them myself. But I don't know why they've grown. But my sense is they have. Mike, thanks for calling. Do you know what I read when we were preparing for this?
What?
The exclamation mark appeared 700 years ago. Does that do anything for you? Not really.
Not
Nobody
really.
cares. Okay. Sorry I brought
Kelly
it up.
in Texas says,
I knew no
please
one
tell
cared
me
about
why we are throwing a wet blanket over people's joy, happiness, and excitement. Who cares? Express how you feel in any manner you want. Stop being downers. P.S. I personally love ellipses.
Well, so do I. It's
There
my
you go.
life. Anonymous texter ends this. My boss ends every email with thanks, ! I find it sounds very insincere and dismissive. Now when I'm responding to an email from an annoying person, I almost always sign thanks! Do you use exclamation marks?
Yes.
A lot?
No.
Okay, well, that takes care of that.
I use them very
That was a brief discussion.
Very sparingly.
Well, I had to think about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
you use them very
sparingly.
intentionally.
Yeah, otherwise they lose all their meaning.
Yeah,
don't
well,
they?
so everything loses its own meaning if you overdo it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you? I didn't get to hear all. Are you anti the exclamation?
I'm not
anti-emoji?
I use, as you both know, because I occasionally text you, I'm a big ellipse person. I use them nonstop. I never use periods or commas or sometimes commas. I'm an ellipse person. That's who I am.
He's an ellipse person.
Thank you.
Jared.
Now I want to play a
Now
little...
we know the cat is out of the
Okay,
bag.
fine. Let's move on. I want to play a little sound from a movie
Mr.
here.
Ellipse.
You can tell people if they weren't listening an hour ago why I'm playing this. This is Marty, I'm not going to say Marty from whom, saying goodbye to Doc before he goes, well, back to the future. Here it is.
What's the meaning of this? Find out in 30 years. It's about the future, isn't it? It's information about the future. I warn you about this, kid. The consequences could be disastrous. That's a risk you're going to have to take. Your life depends on it.
It is a great movie.
It is
Remind
a great
people
movie.
why we just played that, Jared Bowen.
Because we are about to launch our Wednesday watch party for November, where we're going to be talking about all things Back to the Future, Callie, Edgar, and I, for the entire hour. So get ready to call in at 617-300-3838 if you love the film. Why would you go back to the future yourself? Would you just go back to the past yourself? We're going to talk about all things, all the casting decisions that went into this, some of the awkward moments. We were talking about that earlier. I mean, he is in a situation of having his mother hit on him when he goes back to the past.
Who wrote this? Do you know who wrote this?
Bob Gale wrote it. And Robert Zemeckis directed it before he would go on to do Forrest Gump and a whole bunch of Castaway.
Has he written other big things?
Yes,
I
and
never
I'm
heard
blanking at them.
Okay,
at the
well,
moment.
you'll talk about it on the show.
And Spielberg was involved, so there was a great
Oh, I didn't
team
know Spielberg
that
was
all came
involved.
together.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
How was Spielberg involved?
He was a producer.
I had no idea. It's great. It is a great movie, and I love the concept of the show. You guys are going to do a great job with it. That's coming up in, whatever it is, 3 minutes.
Thank you,
we'll all
Jared.
be listening. Thank you very much, Jared.
Okay, and thanks to all the people who are listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio, people that came down to the Boston Public Library. I really appreciate that,
Thank
too.
you for coming,
You can keep
everybody.
up with us 24/7. We have a podcast. We also have a TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we're going to be joined by political analyst Chuck Todd. Can't wait to talk to him. Former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety Andrea Cabral, retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. She's going to talk about the tariff cases before the Supreme Court. Gold Dust orphan Ryan Landry.
Whoa.
And the legendary environmentalist, the brilliant environmentalist Bill McKibben. Our crew, thank you very much to them. Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Additional support from Mira Donaldson. Our engineer, John LaCroix Parker. Our executive producer, Jamie Bologna. As well as our BPL staff, Maddie Gar, who fixed my computer this morning with Sai Patel. That was wonderful. Matthew Glover, Bill Francis, Juan Jose Cadena, our host of the Newsfeed Cafe, and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. The Culture Show with Jared talking Back to the Future starts immediately after us on 89.7 GBH, and they are live from the Boston Public Library studio as well. So stick around to listen to them.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, Jim.
You mentioned Bill McKibben's on tomorrow. I just started his new book, Here
great.
Comes the Sun. It is really,
he's
it's
a
great.
genius.
And you learn, at least I learned a huge amount. I'd buy it if I were you.
Okay, he's Jim Browdy.
I am. Oh, she's Margregan. Is that how we're doing it?
Well, that's how we just did
Dot,
it.
dot, dot.
Dot, dot, dot.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And the Boston Symphony Orchestra. This week, the great Midori performs Dvorak's Violin Concerto at Symphony Hall. Coming soon, Brahms' Second Symphony and Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition. bso.org. Every city has its share of savvy hustlers, and it turns out pigeons are the epitome of street smarts. So what can we learn from the humble pigeon? Watch Nature, the Pigeon Hustle, tonight at 8 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Culture Show news desk, I'm Henry Santoro. If the current climate of the government shutdown and early darkness has you looking for a distraction, fear not, Bunky. Our friends at Boston Sci-Fi Presentation have put together a 12-hour movie marathon of Godzilla movies. It's 12 hours of towering terror and is happening this Saturday from 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. at the Somerville Theater in Davis Square. And there's a reason Godzilla has been crowned the king of the monsters. After making its movie debut in 1954, Godzilla went on to become an international pop culture icon, appearing in 33 Japanese films, 5 American films, and numerous video games, novels, and countless toys. In other words, the Big G is still the OG. Boston's Berklee College of Music has honored Bob Dylan with an honorary doctorate in celebration of his 6 decades in music. Unfortunately, Dylan won't be in Boston to accept the honor. Why, you ask? Well, because a spokesperson for the school says they've already given it to him, so there's no need for Dylan to be here. Talk about tangled up in boo. However, Berklee is hosting a tribute concert to Dylan tonight at the Berklee Performance Center called Watching the River Flow, a roots salute to Bob Dylan. That's this edition of the GBH News Weekly Wednesday Afternoon Culture Cast. I'm Henry Santoro. Next up, The Culture Show with my friend and yours, Jared Bowen, live at the Boston Public Library.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, we're firing up the flux capacitor for our Wednesday watch party, the show where we revisit the movies that shaped us and ask, do they still hold up? This month, we're going Back to the Future. Released in 1985, the sci-fi comedy became a pop culture phenomenon. It sent Michael J. Fox's Marty McFly hurtling 30 years into the past, where he meets his teenage parents and nearly erases himself from existence. With its mix of humor and calibrated chaos, Back to the Future became the rare blockbuster critics loved and audiences couldn't get enough of. It was the top-grossing film of the year, launched careers, and inspired 2 sequels, a theme park ride, and endless quotable lines. So dust off your Walkmans, set your time circuits, and join the conversation. We're asking you, in 2025, does this time travel classic still stand the test of time? Or has the future caught up to it? That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's art and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Herwick III. We're kicking off another Culture Show Movie Club Wednesday watch party, since today is November 5th, and according to Doc Brown, a seminal date in the history of science, we're going back to the future.
Here's a red letter date in the history of science, November 5th, 1955. Yes, of course, November 5th, 1955.
Why? I don't get what happened.
That was the day I invented time travel.
So we're packing into the DeLorean, powering up to 88 miles an hour and speeding back to 1985 when Back to the Future hit theaters and rewired our sense of time. Directed by Robert Zemeckis and produced by Steven Spielberg, the film sent Michael J. Fox's Marty McFly hurtling from Reagan-era suburbia to the 1950s, where his very existence hung in the balance. A fusion of science fiction, comedy, and old-fashioned romance, it shaped a generation's imagination about time travel, destiny, and the power of one perfectly timed guitar solo. 40 years later, it remains a classic. Or does it? We're opening up the lines and asking you, what made it a phenomenon? How does it hold up on this, its 40th anniversary? What does it tell us about the decade that dreamed it and about our yearning for time travel? Our number is 617-300-3838. That's 617-300-3838. Callie Crossley, Edgar B. Horrick III.
Hello.
Great to be back together talking
Yes.
about another super fun film. So, Callie, let's start with you. What are your overall impressions? Because, of course, the three of us have gone back to watch it. I perhaps most recently watched it this morning.
Oh, wow.
You know what's always, I forget stuff. I forget the beautiful opening with all the clocks.
Yeah.
You know, which really sets the theme of the whole movie about time and just the various clocks. I just was so taken with the opening. It really just got me. I also, and I'm becoming the prude here, the language, people, the language.
Yeah. I thought, I still to this moment, maybe we can look it up. I was meant to look up the rating because I was surprised by the language. Was it PG-13? We'll figure this out right now.
Yeah.
But
it was a little strong. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, people are saying all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Nobody seemed to be hesitating to say it. So those two things stood out for me, plus, just the interesting plot twist. And of course, for me, looking at Michael J. Fox be so healthy and strong was just poignant because looking into the future, now we know that he's suffering.
Yeah.
So those were the three top things I could think of.
Yeah, I mean, for me, overall impression. So first of all, this is long been a favorite of mine. I love this movie. I have seen it dozens and dozens of times, and it was a joy to go back and watch it again. There's a couple things that strike me about it. You probably not having seen it in a couple years. One, they do the tone of this is a really difficult movie to categorize. The tone is so perfect. It's a little bit like light screwball, but it's also fairly sincere. It's got sci-fi elements, but it's certainly not a sci-fi movie. So it is so well constructed, and they nail the tone, which I think when you watch it, it's easy to just sort of assume that it's going to work, but everybody has to be pitch perfect for this to work, and everybody is pitch perfect. So that really stands out. And the other one, and I think this was important to the filmmakers early on. So there was a lot of concern about the fact that, generally time travel movies up until this point never really worked particularly well. And for Zemeckis and the other folks involved in this, they sort of innovated a little bit in so much as for them, they wanted to explore the idea that the future or the present, as we know it if you go back into the past, is not immutable. It could be changed. And I guess they sort of felt like other time travel movies tended to fail because it was sort of like you just went into the past and it didn't really matter what happened back there. But by exploring the idea that if you go back into the past and you do something different, it will affect the present and the future, that raises the stakes and makes this movie work in a place where other movies didn't.
I'm not somebody who necessarily loves sci-fi, so I think that's part of the reason. If it came down as a sci-fi movie, there probably would have obliterated an entire audience. But putting it in the prism of a family, I can tell you, as a kid who watched this movie, it has shaped my entire notion of what time travel is and how time travel could change our lives. I don't think there's one thing, and whenever I think about this, it's always through the frame of reference of Doc Brown and Marty McFly, and then we won't be talking necessarily, we won't anyway, we invite our callers to if they want, but we won't be talking about the sequels just in our little discussion here. But what I was so struck by in going back to watch it this morning was generally almost how perfect it is as a film, how everything is laid out in such a way through the script and the dialogue and the visuals that it plants everything you need to know to understand everything that's going to unfold. And then just how funny this is. And I didn't realize the backstory that it wasn't actually Michael J. Fox who was cast in this originally. It was Eric Stoltz,
Wow.
He dropped out or was dropped out
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he was too
Yeah.
serious apparently in taking on this role because he was looking at maybe some of the more serious natures of this. And so when they brought in Michael J. Fox, who was starring in Family Ties at the time, and I mean at the time, this is somebody who was just digging deep within himself. Granted, you can do that when you're in your early 20s, and he was in his early 20s. He wasn't a teenager. But he was bringing something just so raw and fun and comedic to this role that everything, as I looked at it, with a couple of discrepancies
Yes.
that we'll talk about, it works.
It does work. Here's the other thing that I have a question about. How is Doc Doc? No one ever explains. I will say that.
I will say not
and
only
why is
that.
he living in a big house?
Why is he living in a big house? But also, and this is the question I have always had. How did Marty and Doc meet? Why is Marty a high school kid hanging out with Doc Brown? Their friendship is beautiful, and it's actually nice because, it is an intergenerational friendship in a movie that's not just about intergenerational friendship, so I actually think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But, why does Marty know him?
And everybody knows that they know each other and have a relationship.
Yeah, it's super strange.
I just assumed they were neighbors, although in that big pan that you were talking about at the beginning of the film where we also see the clocks, we see, I think, newspaper headlines referring to the Brown family and the wealth that the family had. It says nothing about, they don't pan over his degree in science from MIT or anything like that, but it does give us a sense that he's from a very affluent family. By the way, hilarious that you mentioned the house because I literally ran by that house recently. I was in Pasadena, California. And
wild.
I ran by the house and I thought, well, that looks really familiar. And then I stopped and looked and it's a historic site. It's the Gamble House, as in Procter & Gamble. And it's a very famous site, which you can still visit. Unfortunately, I didn't book my reservation in time because it's a great representation of the arts and crafts style. But now I understand why it was even more familiar. I thought, I must have seen it in an architecture magazine or something. No, of course, I saw it
that's
Back
amazing.
to the Future.
Before we get off the beginning, another sort of lingering question I have, and I mean, maybe it's because, so in the beginning, Marty goes to school, right? And there is that moment where he's auditioning with the band or whatever. So maybe it's because he has an audition later that day. But why is he up before school, going over to Doc Brown's house to play the guitar?
Now, see, that did not, that registered. If they had a relationship, then it would be cool.
A high schooler before school is getting up to do something like that before
because he
school?
and Doc have this really special relationship.
Yes, I don't know.
Some of us are morning people, Edgar.
I
suppose I was not a morning person in high school. I was doing nothing but sleeping right up until the last moment I had to wake up.
And my thought was also that's where he could practice without anybody being.
It's not that he was practicing there. It's that he was practicing there before school.
When else was his audition was later?
After school.
All right.
He wasn't practicing with the band.
Morning people.
Anyway, well, let me just remind people they can call in at 617-300-3838, 617-300-3838, or because we are here at the library and we're streaming on our GBH News YouTube channel, if you have a question here at the library, we do have a microphone up here so you can stand up and ask your question here. So we're already getting calls, so maybe we should just launch right into it. We'll continue talking about our thoughts. We have a lot of things to dissect.
Yes.
But let's go to Dan in Dorchester to be our first caller for our Back to the Future Wednesday watch party. Hi, Dan.
Hi. So this has always been one of my more favorite movies. And as a child, though, you always think of Marty as being this hero that kind of turns his family into a zero to a thing. But as you get older, you realize Marty's kind of a jerk and totally gets rid of his family and turns them into what he wants them to be. So he's going into this family that doesn't exist before, and now all of a sudden they're cool because he hated them.
Well, how does he? But how does he turn them? Because my understanding of it, as I saw it this morning, he's just trying to keep everything on track.
Well, but he keeps the fact that his brother and sister are still born and that his parents still meet. But in the beginning of the movie, Biff crashes their car and is a total bully to the father still. But then by the end of the movie, Biff is polishing off Marty's car, and the father has just written a book and is this famous guy now and is so cool. But before he was just this dud.
All right, I see where you're headed here.
He does. I mean, they certainly do change. I don't know if that's I don't know if I read that as intentional necessarily on Marty's part. He accidentally screws events up, and therefore he is scrambling to put it back together. And of course, when he puts it back together, everybody ends up a little bit different than they did before. But I mean, I sort of take his point. The family is a very different family at the end, and that is presented as a positive thing, for sure.
Yeah, so George was already writing the science fiction stories when he found him back in the back. But remember when he appeared at his bedside in the hazmat suit and played
As Darth Vader from Vulcan,
and then
from planet
played Van
Vulcan.
Halen? That sort of sent him to a different space of how to write those stories. So
Well, I think
that may have helped.
The other thing is, I mean, there is certainly one of the themes in this, right, is the idea that, George, when Marty goes back to 1955 and there's a new sequence of events, George finds an inner confidence that he never had. And I think the implication is the reason why the family in 1985 was in the situation they were in was in part because George had never been as confident as he could have been, right? He never really actualized fully as a human to a certain extent.
Exactly.
And then in 1985, due to, in part, Marty's influence, George does find a confidence that he never had before and therefore becomes a successful writer.
Yeah,
we can go back to that moment. Here's Crispin Glover as George McFly, and Marty's father/friend, as he has to declare when he goes back in time, lest his father know that he's really his son. Here he is being bullied by Biff Tannen, played by Thomas F. Wilson.
What do you think you're doing? Biff. Hey, I'm talking to you, McFly, you Irish bug.
Oh, hey, Biff. Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, you got my homework finished, McFly?
Well, actually, I figured since it wasn't due till Monday.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think, McFly. Think. I gotta have time to recopy it. You realize what would happen if I hand in my homework in your handwriting? I'll get kicked out of school. You wouldn't want that to happen, would you? Would you?
Well, no, of course not, Biff. I wouldn't want that to happen.
Oh, see, that's so sad.
Yeah.
But okay, while we're here, let's spend a little bit of time talking about Crispin Glover.
Yes.
He was actually here in Boston this week. He was unveiling his latest film, which he is completely self-produced, wrote, directed, along with featuring his father. He did that at the Coolidge Corner Theater, and he also appeared on The Culture Show. You may have noticed that in all the coverage of Back to the Future over the last 40 years, he's never appeared as part of it. Here's what he had to say about his relationship to the film.
I saw it in the movie theater when it came out in 1985, so I haven't seen it since that time. I tend towards staying away from it because there was a lawsuit having to do with the sequels wherein they use a mold that was taken of my face from the original film, made for the old age makeup, in order to fool audiences into believing that I was in the second and third films, which I'm not. Well, it's confusing because they incorporated very small amounts of footage of me from the first film and the second film. It was illegal when they did it. It wasn't like my lawsuit made it so that it was illegal. What they did was illegal right from the beginning.
So he said that. He also said that there was more about the screenplay that didn't appear in the film, that was in the screenplay by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, that made him not want to participate in either of the other two films. So
Interesting.
I felt like it was a lot that he said about this, but this
Yeah.
is the reason he explained in our conversation a couple of days ago on The Culture Show why he has not gone back to this series. But we continue to go back to it. And by the way, if you want to call and participate, it's 617-300-3838. Again, our number is 617-300-3838. Should we go back to our callers?
Yeah, let's.
And speak to Jane in Concord. Hi, Jane.
Hi. I have to admit I haven't seen the movie again recently.
That's
but I
okay.
did like it, and I think one of the best things about the DeLorean car, and I like gull-wing cars or vintage cars, so that was really cool. I'm not sure if I'd ever seen one of those before. What I didn't like at the end was when, I don't know if it's the parents or the siblings are dressed very preppy, like suddenly life's better so they could go to a country club and look like super clean cut, and I really found that kind of jarring at the time.
Interesting.
I think
just the coding of the clothes, if that makes sense.
I think a lot of people had an issue with the ending. I did too, because I never quite understood. Well, you understand that, of course, George McFly gets the conviction to get the girl back in the day, and suddenly, because he's also taken down the bully, that he's going to be stronger and more independent in life. But it reads like the soul has also kind of just drained out of the family. Not that the mother drinking vodka practically out of the bottle at the dinner table adds a lot of soul.
She did pour it over ice, but
yes, it's true. Also, he's a best-selling author. Don't forget that. So
yes,
that led to whatever.
Yeah, the success.
Yes, exactly. I think I should talk about, in my re-looking at it, some things popped out at me that didn't before. And that is the race scenes, the scenes in which race was invoked. So first of all, I have to say that it's interesting that in a film set in 1955, there were even any black characters.
Yeah.
Because typically in a movie like that, you wouldn't see any, as if they didn't exist in a town in Hill Valley. But they did exist, and in one of the particular scenes in the movie, I was taken with an exchange between Goldie, who is a black playing a black youngster. Later, he's going to become mayor, but he plays a black youngster cleaning up the soda shop, and that's where Marty McFly and George McFly first interact in 1955.
Yeah, right when Marty first gets back to
exactly.
1955.
Let's take a listen. We'll hear your thoughts on the other side. But again, here's Goldie Wilson, an employee at Lou's Cafe, offering advice to a teenaged George McFly.
Don't you know if you let people walk over you now, they'll be walking over you for the rest of your life. Look at me. You think I'm gonna spend the rest of my life in this slop house?
Watch it, Goldie.
No, sir. I'm gonna make something of myself. I'm going to night school, and one day I'm gonna be somebody.
That's right, he's gonna be mayor.
Yeah, I'm an mayor. Now that's a good idea. I could run for mayor.
A colored mayor, that'll be the day.
You wait and see, Mr. Carruthers. I will be mayor. I'll be the most powerful man in Hill Valley, and I'm gonna clean up this town.
Good. You can start by sweeping the floor.
Man, Goldie Wilson. I like the sound of that.
So there's a couple things going on there. First, it's played for laughs, as it's supposed to be. It's a comedy, and it's in 1955. And remember, this is November 5th, 1955. It's exactly 1 month before December 5th, 1955, which is the beginning of the Montgomery bus boycott, because Rosa Parks has just refused to give up her seat. So the pathway that a Goldie Wilson could become mayor doesn't begin until a month later, by the timing of the movie.
Yeah.
So the guy, the shop owner, saying, who could imagine that, is right in the moment. But then it becomes possible.
Well, we will pick up more of this in just a moment. We're talking about the 1985 sci-fi comedy Back to the Future on its 40th anniversary. I'm joined by Culture Show co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Herwick III. The conversation continues on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, some Massachusetts cities are seeing turnovers in leadership after yesterday's election. We'll learn about the new mayors-elect of Everett and Brockton, and an update on when SNAP recipients can expect to see at least some of their benefits. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Johnson & Wales University, the College of Hospitality and Business, offers programs where service and commerce intersect, with an emphasis on career preparation. Learn more at jwu.edu. And Music Worcester, presenting Orchestre Nationale de France, with pianist Daniil Trifonov performing works by French composers Ravel, Bahrain, and Saint-Saëns, Friday, November 7th at Mechanics Hall. More at musicworcester.org. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds. New properties are added often. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov.
More news, more local. more you. GBH News 89.7, gbhnews.org, and streaming on the GBH app. Trusted local news.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on our GBH News YouTube channel. We're spending the hour hosting our Wednesday watch party, revisiting Back to the Future 40 years after it first lit up movie screens in our imaginations. It's the film that made time travel cool, spawned catchphrases, and still has critics debating whether it's pure nostalgia or a near-perfect piece of pop storytelling. I'm here with Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Herrick III, and we'd like your take. What do you see when you rewatch Back to the Future today? Call us at 617-300-3838. Again, that number is 617-300-3838. We're also broadcasting live from our studio at the Boston Public Library. We have a microphone here. You can step up and offer your thoughts about watching the film. So we just heard, of course, Huey Lewis there, and I didn't even realize until you brought it up, even after I watched it again this morning and you brought it up in the morning meeting, that Huey Lewis is in the film.
Yeah. Yep.
He's one of the teachers at the beginning when Marty McFly is trying out for the high school performance, who tells him he's too loud. But there's lots of great trivia. Did you know that they were also thinking about just creating a time chamber? And then they decided that wouldn't work, so then they were going to do a 1950s time refrigerator in which he would travel. But then I don't know if this was before or after Punky Brewster, and remember that Punky Brewster episode where the kid gets locked in the refrigerator, and they thought, that's not a good idea, because they don't want kids locking themselves in refrigerators, and that's how they landed on the DeLorean. So lots of great trivia. Also that President Reagan, who was name-checked in the film, of course, can you believe that Ronald Reagan would be president? Yeah. He actually incorporated lines from the film into his State of the Union address later on. So this is a movie, as we've outlined, that was the #1 blockbuster hit of that year and really galvanized people from that moment in time onward in all different ways.
You know, one of the things that always gets me as I look at it again, how they played off the clothing with people in 1955 trying to figure out what the hell is he wearing, and they assume that his puffy vest
is a life preserver,
yeah. Which makes sense if you put yourself back in the thing. Like, why?
And the bit where she thinks his name is Calvin Klein, because
exactly.
she's like, it's all over your underwear.
So, well, there's a whole other thing. We'll go to the mother-son dynamic in a moment. But I was thinking about this. Yeah. So, as Michael J. Fox recently pointed out, we now have a wider span of time here in 2025 from the movie, because of course we're talking about the 40th anniversary of the movie. It came out in 1985, 40 years ago, but the movie came out about a film where he went back to 1955, so that was only a 30-year span away. And it's kind of fascinating to look at how much changed from the 1950s to the 1980s, and then what has changed from the 1980s to 2025. I would argue not a ton changed until relatively recently, when we had cell phones and the internet and AI. But for a long time, clothing, even cars to some degree, they all iterated, but not substantially so, I would think.
I think I would actually agree with that, and I would say I think you're right. Is certainly obviously cell phones and the internet is a huge difference, but it's not as visible, say, necessarily like from a movie camera perspective. The look of the world is not as different, I would say, and I think it underscores. It highlights just how remarkable I think that period from 1955 to 1985 was. There was a lot of technological advancement. I mean, I think society changed a lot, and I think it's a real outlier. I mean, when you think about the fact that many of the people alive today lived through some portion of that period, it's easy to think to yourself, oh, things change fast all the time. But no, I think that was a remarkably fast-changing period of time and actually an outlier.
I was also taken by the fact that when he starts to order his drink, he's looking for something sugar-free. So
Yeah.
we have to be reminded
Yeah.
that was also the beginning of a health movement where people were articulating, I don't want something that has sugar in it. It was different.
Well,
you know?
because you're talking about Pepsi free, and I realized a bomb of product placement went off in that
Oh,
movie.
yeah. Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Everything, Toyota,
Tab.
and Pepsi, and Tab.
Yeah.
And I started to keep a list, actually. Zales, remember Zales?
Yes, right, yeah.
Miller Lite,
Yes.
J.C. Penney, which is in every scene because
Yes.
that's the mall where it happened.
Yep.
There is so much product placement in that movie. Even when he goes back in time and they're having fun with some of the old candy bars like Almond Joy and Mounds.
Yeah.
Everybody got to buy into this one. Let's go back to our callers and let's start up this segment with Dylan calling from Lowell. Hi, Dylan.
my gosh, hi there.
It's great to have you on the show. What are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, where do I even start? Like, the Back to the Future franchise is something I grew up with my entire childhood. Like, just thinking about being a kid with my Lego cars and my little brother singing Back to the Future song while we're running really fast with our Lego cars was iconic for my childhood. And, like, the music from the movie, every single song in that movie I associate with it whenever I hear it come on the radio. Like, The Power of Love, like, immediately it takes me back to that scene in the movie and all the nostalgia that brings. Or, like, it takes me back to the time when my family and I went to Universal Studios in Los Angeles and went on the ride and saw the Universal Studio tour where the clock tower was there and a bunch of different movie sets.
Did you get to see I was telling Edgar this before the show. Did you see, were they doing a recreation of Doc up there on the tower when you were there?
Oh, no. I think this was in the early 2000s. So Back to the Future was still very popular, but not to that extent. So it was more or less just the clock tower and them talking about, hey, this is a popular set that is used in many different movies, not just Back to the Future, but like a myriad of different movies. And it's always fun seeing that little Easter egg in each movie. Or like, I even have to shout out to Doc Brown because Doc Brown is one of the reasons why I became a scientist later in life. I'm doing my PhD here in Lowell.
Wow.
Oh, that's incredible.
That's
well,
really
Dylan,
fun.
thank you so much for the call. I was telling Edgar that I remember going through that backlot tour, and you get very excited when you see the clock tower. And on my tour, even though it was in the middle of the day, somebody runs out in the Doc Brown uniform with the white hair. Of course, I think even from a distance, you know it's not Christopher Lloyd who's filling up the bucket on a daily basis for tours. But it's just fun to be there. And Edgar, you were looking up the other. That's a very famous lot.
They call it Courthouse Square now is what they call it, but they used to call it Mockingbird Square because To Kill a Mockingbird was filmed there. In addition, the first episode of The Twilight Zone was filmed there. Gremlins, the movie, that's the town square in Gremlins. Loads of TV shows from like Knight Rider to like recently Rutherford Falls, which was a Peacock streaming thing. I watched that. That's the center of town in Rutherford Falls too. So like that is a well-worn, like that's an amazing lot. And as long as we're talking about Doc Brown, I would love to listen to the scene where where Marty is showing Doc a little tape and sort of explaining to him about how the time travel thing happened, because I want to talk a little bit about Christopher Lloyd's performance.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, incredible. The timing in these two together, the timing of those two together is amazing. Christopher Lloyd is absolutely unhinged in this movie.
I know.
And it is perfection.
I know. He just lets it go.
He's nuts.
I know.
He's absolutely nuts. You cannot imagine anybody else in this role. Even though I think they considered just about everybody you could imagine, but he's perfect.
I would agree. I love their interaction so much, and it drives the movie, of course.
Well, hearing Marty say, "What the hell is a gigawatt?" Callie, we looked it up, and it's only rated PG, and PG-13 was introduced a year before. So we've become a much more conservative society because that would never get a PG rating today.
Absolutely
and
not.
let me just say, that's a calm word in this movie. They got the SOB, they got the other stuff going on at various parts of this movie.
So while we're talking about some interesting themes, of course, when Marty McFly goes back in time, he meets his parents. Okay, so he meets his dirty father. He deals with that, tries to encourage him, but then he meets, I get giggly just thinking about this, he meets his very amorous mom, Lorraine, who is, she's quite mature in her almost 18 years, as she tells him. So here is a clip in which Marty encounters his mom.
Marty, why are you so nervous?
Lorraine, have you ever
been in a situation where you knew you had to act a certain way, but when you got there, you didn't know if you could go through with it?
Oh, you mean like how you're supposed to act on a first date?
Oh, sort of.
Oh, I think I know exactly what you mean.
You do?
You know what I do in those situations?
What?
I don't worry. This is all wrong. I don't know what it is. But when I kiss you, it's like I'm kissing my brother. I guess that doesn't make any sense, does it?
Believe me, it makes perfect sense.
Oh, thank goodness. That's what everybody at the movie theater thought. Thank goodness it ended that way.
Yeah.
But apparently Disney passed on this because of this scene.
Oh, really?
And they didn't want to head into this territory. And it's funny, it's how I feel about Rear Window. I still get terrified at the end of Rear Window because I think maybe this is the time that she doesn't make it out of the window and he's going to get her. And I was watching this morning thinking maybe this is the time that she doesn't realize that she's somehow related to him and she'll kiss him. It's very nerve-wracking as this tension builds, which is a very interesting device.
It is, and I would agree with you that it was very nerve-wracking. It also, what's interesting to me, which I forgot, that's the few minutes before the next part of that scene, which is really a full-on sexual assault. I mean, that's the only way that we would describe it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know I saw it, and it didn't register as that at the time. But you know,
speaking of it not being even rated PG-13,
exactly.
Not just the language, but you're right. That's in it as well. Yeah, I mean, this is obviously like sort of a tricky storyline to include. The writers had talked about the fact, and I think they're right on this, like that they realized if they were going to do this that it was important that Lorraine was the person who was going to have to pull the plug on this at some point, which she does, and I think that's right. And I mean, if you're going to do this storyline, which is like, I guess, I don't know if brave is the word. I mean, it's a choice. I think this is about as well as you can do it, and I think it is right to have her pull the plug and be like, it's like kissing my brother. And then, as you said, Jared, I think that is that everybody breathes a giant sigh of relief. But I think it helps that Marty's uncomfortable with it the entire time, right? So I think that, and it is played for laughs. Again, it's that thing about this movie where the tone is like, it's sometimes like screwball, but it's also sincere. So there's enough sincerity that he's actually playing it like he's uncomfortable, which helps because he has to play it as if he's uncomfortable. Otherwise, you're going to be like, this is weird, right?
And and then it goes right into this other scene, which is not played for laughs, really.
No, it's a high drama moment.
Yes, which leads George to finally stand up. But there's a lot going on there before George sort of pulls it together.
Yeah, it gets pretty intense.
It is.
Well, before our next break, let's go back to one more caller. And by the way, again, if you want to call and weigh in about Back to the Future, our number is 617-300-3838. Again, 617-300-3838. Let's go to Christine calling from Westboro. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Jared. Hi, Edgar. Hi, Callie. Love you guys still.
Hi. Hi.
We adore you. Thanks for calling.
Oh, you're welcome. So I thought this was a great movie choice. There have been great movie choices so far. Callie earlier had talked about being sent to a different place in watching this movie. I felt that transition really, too, coming through as somebody who, last time we were talking about Coming to America, was relating to the main character as being an East Coaster from Queens and an African-American background. Here, suddenly, you get transported across the U.S., and now you're in California. You're viewing that total California dreaming kind of lifestyle with the kids all having their own cars and driving to school. You have this California girl, kind of a beach boy kind of song girl, that Perfect Jennifer that Claudia Wells was playing. And then, of course, you have Marty getting around, not on his surfboard. He's not surfing USA in that sense, but he does have his skateboard. So he is like kind of surfing the wave, but yet in a sort of more citified fashion, which as somebody coming from New York City could kind of relate to more. So I think it was not just a peek into the future, but it was also a peek into a present that didn't really exist for for those of us who were on the East Coast, but was sort of stylized from those people who are on the West Coast. I think the world has changed a lot, though, since then. I think the world has gotten smaller since we had this film, so that kind of lifestyle doesn't seem as far away now as it did then. But definitely, I think we got a great peek into what was at the time, and of course, the time backwards, we got a peek into life then, and life potentially in the future. So those are the three things that I think made Back to the Future such a great movie.
I think that's such a great observation, especially knowing that Spielberg was a producer here. So bringing that lens on youth and family, a California lens on youth and family to this story from his standpoint, just kind of overlooking the entire thing.
And the fact that he is the great detail guy in terms of connecting it to culture. Who will ever forget things are bigger than in the mirror than in Jurassic Park? I mean, it just says it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so here we have a skateboard that says a lot. You know, that's interesting.
And also, Marty essentially in 1955 invents skateboarding too, right?
That's right.
Among the things he inspired, because he rips the kid has the scooter, he rips it off, and he does the whole skateboard thing with Biff and the bad guys following them. One of the bad guys, of course, Billy Zane, who would go on to be the bad guy in Titanic in an early appearance by him.
I had also missed that until I watched it again this morning.
Billy Zane with hair, by the way.
Yeah, which is what makes him difficult to recognize. We're talking about the 1985 sci-fi comedy Back to the Future on its 40th anniversary. I'm joined by Culture Show co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Horwick III. The conversation continues on the Culture Show. Stay with us.
From start to finish, a downhill ski race is all adrenaline and speed. And also danger. For elite skiers, a serious crash can end a career or worse. I'm Marco Werman. There are new safety measures in effect to help protect skiers. That plus the day's top global news next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Boston Ballet, presenting George Balanchine's Jewels, showcasing 3 distinct styles of neoclassical ballet in one brilliant program. Opening November 6th at Citizens Opera House. Tickets at bostonballet.org. And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, featuring artwork this fall from the Boston Printmakers and the New England Mosaic Society, plus a special exhibit of miniatures from the museum's collection. More at artcomplex.org. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing coverage plans for individuals, families, employers, and retirees with benefits that help you live in your moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
GBH Daily is a newsletter that keeps you informed, connected, and ready to go every weekday morning. You can subscribe today and get it in your inbox at gbh.org/daily.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is the Culture Show live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. We're spending the hour hosting our Wednesday watch party, going back in time, revisiting Back to the Future 40 years after it first lit up movie screens and our imaginations. It's the film that made time travel cool, spawned catchphrases again, and still has the critics debating whether it's one of the greatest movies of all time. As we mentioned, people in the moment decided it certainly was, because it made more than $300 million just, well, I think all around the world when it was released in 1985. Our number is 617-300-3838. Again, 617-300-3838. And this is a very significant day because it was November 5th, 1985, that he went back to go to 1955. 1955. Of course, that's 70 years ago today.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's where it was in the 50s. So I have a question for both of you.
Go on.
As I was thinking about this morning, and I have thought a lot about it since I first saw the film, Callie, I'll start with you. Would you go back in time, forward in time, or anywhere in time?
No, because I couldn't actually fix a moment. If I could go back and fix a moment, yes. But he had to go back for the whole year, and there was a lot of stuff going on in that movie I didn't want to revisit again. So no, not for me. But if I could fix a moment, yes, because that would be, there's so many wonderful memories I'd love to.
So you would go
revisit.
back?
I would go back for a moment, or perhaps go forward for a moment. But again, there's a lot of stuff going on I can't control, so I know.
I think I would also go back, and I think it's the thing that one of the things that really inspired this script. So Zemeckis knew he was interested in doing a time travel movie, and it was kind of playing around in his head. And he goes over to his parents' house, and he picks up his dad's yearbook, and that's where the moment kind of hits him. He's like, it would be really interesting to like see my dad when I'm the same age as he is, and that's kind of the thing that kicked him off. And I find myself, I think I would be interested in that in particular. People I know or people in my family, whether it be my grandparents or even great-grandparents or my parents, and be able to go back and encounter them organically in the space they were in and get to understand them a little bit more and a little bit differently in a way you just otherwise couldn't. So that definitely has appeal to me. The future thing, I don't know. It's like, what if you're not around? Then you pick a date, and then you're like, well, sometime between now and then, I'm gonna die, and I don't know when. So that one, I'm like, it could go belly up pretty quick. So,
well, to the point that both of you made, it was one of the people on the creative team who said that, going back and thinking about revisiting, or not revisiting, but visiting your parents or even your grandparents in that moment. One of them said, my mother was a nightclub singer in the 1940s, and he would love the opportunity to go back and see her perform. I have to say, my answer is totally based on this movie. From seeing it as a child, I understood bad. This is bad. You don't go back to the future, and you definitely don't want to go forward in the future either. For all the reasons that Edgar just said, bad. And I think about that. What if you go forward? It's just a black screen. That's my vision of what would happen. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Something goes terribly. Is not going to be a good year for me.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't think I would want to do either. And then and then clearly I've thought a lot about this.
Yeah.
This is what I do when I run a lot in the morning, and I would not want to change the dynamics of anything in the world, let alone my own family.
Yeah.
So.
Now that I would like to do, but but again, just the way I want it. So that's not a good thing either. Can we talk about the music moment that's really iconic in it? I mean, first of all the music is important in this film, including the score by Alan Silvestri, which I think sometimes gets overlooked. It's wonderful, and it gets overlooked because Huey Lewis's songs are so prominent. But there is the scene
where Marty invents rock and roll
after
inventing the skateboard.
Yes, after he invents the skateboard, then he plays his guitar as he would in 1985, and he plays Johnny Be Good. Which is a song that was performed by Chuck Berry in 1958 for the first time, has been covered everywhere.
So listen to some blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Just to note that it's a staple of rock and roll. That scene there bothers me a little bit because I know it's played for comedy, like he invented the song and rock and roll, and it's reminiscent of a lot of black artists' work being co-opted, and I don't appreciate that. But it's funny in the moment, and Chuck Berry's name should be raised up at this moment because of that song.
100%. 100%.
Elton John, Sex Pistols, Peter Tosh, Jimi Hendrix, Devo have all covered it. So it's an amazing song. And really important.
Yeah, and worth noting, I have a friend who's a big sort of guitar nerd type, specifically vintage guitars. He has pointed out to me multiple times that Marty McFly is playing a Gibson ES-345, which was not produced for the first time until 1958. So that is a mistake. That guitar would not have been invented.
Was 1958.
Well, but in the premise of this, it's like Marvin, his cousin, is like, you know that sound you're looking for? Here it is.
Yes.
So that predating it is fine. But that guitar, you were just talking about, the details are all pretty locked out. That's a missed one right there.
That's one they definitely missed. Well, again, our number for calling and weighing in on the show, including what time travel you would do, is 617-300-3838. Again, 617-300-3838. Let's go to Roger, who's calling from Marblehead. Hi, Roger.
Hi, guys. Great discussion so far, and obviously it's a fabulous movie. It's just so much fun in so many ways. But I just wanted to bring up two things. One sort of on the good side, one on the bad side, but I'll start with the bad. I kind of found that the whole scene at the mall with these terrorists running around and shooting, it seemed very cartoonishly handled, and it seemed like it was handled not very well and not very artistically compared to everything else that was done so brilliantly in the movie. That one just seemed like it fell flat a bit, and I think it played into some ugly stereotypes clearly, but it just seemed a little out of sync with the rest of the movie and the spirit of the movie. So that's always bothered me a bit about that movie. That being said, I still love the movie tremendously, and I think one of the things on the good side, in addition to everything everyone's already said, that makes the movie not just fun but satisfying, is watching, obviously, the interactions that Marty has with Biff and with his dad and parents and the whole thing in the past, and then having the brilliant comeuppance that Biff suffers, and you see him paying for his being a jerk and a bully his whole life, as he turns out to be basically the manservant of the McFly family. So there's just a brilliant, satisfying nature to that, and I think it's sort of the cream on top of the cupcake of that movie.
Roger, thanks for that analysis. And yes, and two things,
Both
this far
great
into the
points.
show, two
Both
things that we
great
didn't
points,
bring
yeah.
up. And,
Yes.
and what a great treat for that actor, too, to get to play both sides of Biff, because when you first meet him, you think this is who this person is, as is the quality of a great actor.
Yes.
And then to see how he can just completely turn that character around.
Do you know that Tom Wilson, who would go on and he does stand-up and stuff like that? So apparently, famously, I don't know if he still does it. For a long time, he carried around headshots, and on the back of his headshot, he typed up basically all the stuff, like his frequently asked questions, because everybody would always ask. He's like, Michael J. Fox is a really nice guy. Leah Thompson was really nice. There's something funny, like Crispin Glover is kind of weird, but not as weird as he presents himself most of the time. And he just has a whole, it's just like a whole paragraph. You can find it online. It's really worth reading. He's funny. He has like a song that he did for a while in his stand-up act that's kind of a version of that, where he's like, these are the questions everybody asks me. So I think that's kind of great. He's great, Tom Wilson, as Biff. He's fantastic.
He is. He's very believable.
Well, what's also struck me is the collegiality that you were just talking about, Edgar, because in time with this 40th anniversary, the film actually came out in the summertime and then was at the top of the box office charts for about 3 months. So I guess we could argue we're still in that 40th anniversary zone, even though it's all 2025 and 1985. But Michael J. Fox has just come out with a book and is very candid, but mostly saying great things about how this experience was positive. And yes, going back to Crispin Glover saying that he was aware what an extraordinary actor he was. He had a different style of acting that was disruptive in maybe the best terms, because it brought everybody up another level because he was doing things differently. But it just seemed like it was a lovely set as they came together.
Oh, and I want to just follow up on what the caller said about the Libyans coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It is odd. When you look at it again, you're like, where did that come from?
I think in the context of the time, I think about
Gaddafi,
Gaddafi and Cold War stuff. So, to caller's point, it really sticks out like a sore thumb 40 years later, for sure.
Well, I think even tonally where it's not really about current events, that film. And so even in the moment, it just doesn't, it's like, wait, all of a sudden the real world is intruding. Because again, being mindful of what was happening with international relations at that time. Again, not excusing it, but even then, I think to the caller's point, tonally, it just didn't work. Because this was more about just a small group of people. So because we're coming to the end of our discussion, I also wanted to sort of trot out there, and again, if people want to call in, it's 617-300-3838, what you think of the ending and what happened. And how much does Marty McFly know? Because he's gone back in time, he's shifted time, then he returns, but does that mean that the time that elapsed in which we didn't see him because life changed and it's just kind of reconnected itself, does he only know the life that he returns to, or does he know that he went back in time and changed it?
I assume he does, because when they come for him to go to Back to the Future 2, they say it's about your kids.
Yeah.
So
he's not surprised when the DeLorean shows back up on his. Yeah, that's a good point. I would also say when he comes out to the garage and Jennifer is there, he says to her, "You're a sight for sore eyes." She's like, "Marty, I just saw you yesterday," or whatever. He's like, it feels like it's, she's like, "You're looking at me like you haven't seen me in a week." He's like, "Yep, that's how it feels." So that implies he remembers what was just happening.
Well, let me severance this a little bit more.
Oh, go on.
So is he then carrying around 2 lived lives?
Yes.
Yes.
I think absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
I think he has all of the memories of, because he's also surprised when he says to his brother, "What are you wearing?" And he's like, "Marty, I always wear a suit to the office," right? So he knows what his family once was. So he's 17 years old?
Right.
So he has 17 years of his existence in one world that he has in his head. And then moving forward, it's totally new. So he's actually going to have a rough time the next couple of weeks, right?
This is another reason why time travel is bad.
Yes, this is true.
Like he's going to have to get used to a whole new life. Yes.
But he has all those memories.
Yes, he does.
But it's a different life.
So he remembers the memory where his mother showed up with the vodka, but he also remembers the memory where she made him grilled cheese when he came home from school every day.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, this is where you just have to suspend belief.
No.
Yes, because it's the same part of the movie where I said, "Where'd you get the 1955 clothes?" Just same thing.
Well, I mean, I think Doc gives them to him. Also,
that's what I thought too.
I was also like, did Doc enroll him at the high school? How does he get enrolled at the high school? That's
they didn't care. Well, also notice how he's there when there's a big fight, and the principal never turns and says, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
You don't belong here.
Before we're out of here, one thing I want to say, one thing I really like about this movie, and I think it's sort of instructive, is the story around the making of this movie. I think it's good for anybody who makes stuff to think about this. This is something that was conceived in 1980. There were 4 different versions of the draft. They took it to 40 places. They got turned down a bunch of times. They stuck with it. They got what they deemed eventually the wrong actor in Eric Stoltz and course corrected in the middle of it. It just shows sometimes all of the work that goes into putting something great up there on the screen, and I think that goes for on a smaller scale too. When you're making anything, it's iterative and you got to work at it, and if you have that core idea and you believe in it, you stick with it, you can find your way through, but sometimes it takes a little bit of work to get there. So I think that's
inspiration from Edgar B. Hurd III.
Well, let me add a little coda of inspiration. This comes by way of Adam in Medway, who texted that the best product placement was Marty's Toyota pickup. It made me buy one.
Oh, I love that.
Which is
amazing.
I love that.
Well, this has been a very, very fun conversation. Oh, one more thing I would add to your point, Edgar. Not only when they finished the film, they finished the shooting, they actually went back and shot more. Which is another thing. If you're an artist, they weren't happy with what they did. They actually even created plot changes to get it exactly where they wanted it to be.
And they held firm when the head of Universal Studios said you should change the name to Spaceman from Pluto and sent a memo to Steven Spielberg. They held firm, but apparently changed the character's name to Lorraine because he wanted to change to Lorraine because it was his wife or
finished this time. I know I did a little Back to the Future there. Thank you all for joining us for another Wednesday watch party. Thank you to listener Brian Tinger for recommending Back to the Future. This is important. Mark your calendar. We will host our next watch party on Wednesday, December 17th, and we're going to talk about...
The best Christmas Carol.
We're going to talk about A Christmas Carol, all of them. Call in to tell us about your favorite film adaptation of the Dickens classic. Vote for your favorite Scrooge, from Alastair Sim to Bill Murray. Tomorrow on The Culture Show, Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum Security Chief Anthony Amore joins us to discuss his latest book, The Rembrandt Heist. Thanks to Henry Santoro for this Wednesday Culture Cast. Culture Show intern Avery Morin. Today's engineers Dave Goodman. The BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Pat Lally, Olivia Corshio. Also thanks to the Newsfeed Cafe. Thank you to everyone who called in, who was down here at the library to visit with us today. We love seeing you all. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Spend your afternoon with us. Stay with us for GBH's All